Brianna Joy Gray was speaking with Norm Finkelstein. This was probably about a week ago at this point. This is not news, but we thought this was interesting because right at the end of the interview, Norm thought he would challenge Brianna on her support for Marianne Williamson. And Brianna did not take it well, to put it mildly. So let's take a look at this video here.
And I'll end with a word of criticism of you, though reasonable people can disagree. I'm just going to say my opinion. Don't get nervous. I'm not going to say something.
No, I'm just a little concerned about.
Norm Finkelstein is like the Columbo of the anti-woke left. Right before he's about to end the interview. And one more thing.
Oh, one more thing.
There's one more thing I want to bring up before we leave. Right. And so here it goes.
About time, but go ahead.
Yeah. You keep speaking of Marianne Williamson as a significant candidate, a candidate who maybe you would support, and so on and so forth, because she's taken these positions, quote unquote. And to me, with all due respect, it's kind of laughable. Marianne Williamson has no record in politics.
I'm sorry, Norma. I really can't. I cannot. I'm just telling you honestly, I don't have the time to sit here and defend Marianne Williamson. And so I cannot let her be. I cannot let you say a bunch of statements that I'm likely going to want to push back against. We really do have to wrap. I'm sorry.
I'm just
okay. We pause for a second. So we were going to cover this last week. And, we just felt it wouldn't really be nice to like do a segment kind of critical of Brianna while she was taking her forced to vote victory lap, which was well earned and well deserved. And there's a lot that we admire Brie for. But and that's part of the reason why we didn't do this last week.
You're making up for it with this freeze. I'll tell you that.
So we didn't want to get into this. We didn't want to like take a jab at her last week. But I got to say that is a pretty ridiculous reaction. Like, if you need to rap, and I don't know why you need to rap because they weren't live streaming or anything, but whatever. If you got to go, you could just say, hey, I take that criticism to heart. Maybe we'll talk about that next time. Thank you for being here. We really don't have time to get into that now, but, I respect your opinion, whatever. I take the criticism as a comment, whatever. This, and she goes on even more. You want to play the rest? You want to add anything first?
Well, she's got this tendency, this woe is me thing, like she's very put upon by this job because sometimes people push back on her in ways she doesn't like, and it's really mean. And God, I don't even know why I'm doing this. It's so terrible.
Yeah, for $35,000 a month, record 4 podcasts.
You remember she put out like a bunch of tweets to that effect, like, I don't even know if I want to be doing this, for $35,000, I think you'll keep doing it. I bet you're going to keep doing it.
I don't see why you wouldn't. All right, here we go.
Yeah, you can cut it, just leave that part out. I'm just saying that there's no guarantee, but when you look to a candidate, at least part of the left tradition, a candidate on the left had to have proven him or herself.
I think that's fine. Norm, it's irrelevant. She's not going to win the primary. So if you don't want to vote in the Democratic primary, you don't have to. I'm going to use my vote to vote for Marianne Williamson. I don't really understand why we're still talking about this on the left. I find it to be exasperating. Please don't vote for Marianne. I promise you, I don't care if you vote for Marianne. I don't care if anybody else votes for Marianne. I have a vote. I am living in D.C. I would rather use it to vote against Joe Biden. I'm not voting for RF Kennedy, so I'm going to vote for Marianne. And to me, that's like logically obvious. But I'm not trying to persuade anybody of anything. But I don't know why everyone wants to talk me out of voting for Marianne. So God bless. Everybody do what you're going to do. I am going to do strategically what I think is useful, which is to register my discontent with the Democratic Party in the primary by voting for Marianne Williamson and then voting for our Cornel West in the general election. This seems to be the most obvious, least controversial statement in the history of left politics, but apparently I've stepped on a third rail.
Okay, the reason why it's not irrelevant...
And this is her martyr thing. This is her martyr thing. She's like, I stepped on a third rail. Everyone's coming at me. You get paid very well for what you do, and this comes with the gig. For somebody who is admirably aware of her own privilege, she nonetheless cannot help to demonstrate it whenever she gets put upon, as in this case.
I also just have to add the reason why it's relevant, the reason why, your support for Marianne is not irrelevant is, very much signified by the events of the past 36 hours, right? Like if you're going to support a candidate with no chance to win, it is important to do so in a way that at least defines whatever movement you're trying to build on terms that we can all agree to. And Marianne Williamson, just like RFK, I mean, she's better than RFK on this. Everybody's better than RFK on this. But Marianne Williamson, like 99% of elected Democrats and Republicans in America. Netanyahu's better than RFK on this, right? Exactly. She's terrible on this issue. And obviously, Norm Finkelstein lost his career over taking a stand on this issue, right? And so that's why it's important. That's why it is important. Right. And the idea that there's anything strategic about registering your discontent with the Democratic Party, like the Democratic Party gives a fuck about your discontent or anybody else's discontent. If there's anyone in America who's best positioned to have understood this by now, it's Brianna Joy Gray. She worked on the Bernie 2020 campaign. Like, what don't you understand about they don't give a fuck?
They wipe their ass with your discontent.
Exactly. They don't fucking care.
Right? And another reason that it matters is, to borrow our friend Nick Cruz's favorite phrase, it presents the left as deeply unserious when you back a deeply unserious candidate like Marianne Williamson. What is she, on her third campaign manager now? It's the third campaign manager?
I think so, yeah.
There is no reason to doubt the report that came out from somebody who, took a great risk. I can't remember his name, by breaking his NDA and talking about what was really going on there and claiming that Marianne said ballot access is mythical stuff.
I forget the guy's name. Yeah.
Does she have ballot access anywhere? I haven't seen anything to contradict what that guy said. So why are you even assuming you're going to be able to write her in? Listen, Brianna spends a lot of time talking about her own privilege. She does in this interview with Norm that comes up, actually. And, trying to be aware of it and trying to be conscious of it. And, that's all very admirable. If you're conscious of the fact that your platform and your privilege give you a fucking responsibility, you have a responsibility not to signal to the people who follow you that supporting this campaign is a good idea. That's why it matters. You want to talk, aside from what we've already said, why are you getting pushback? Because it's a reflection on your judgment and your character. That's why.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But we really do have to go, Norm. But I really do appreciate you joining me today, Norm. For people who want to hear more, please do check out, I'll burn that bridge when I get to it, Heretical Thoughts and Identity Politics, Cancel Culture, and Academic Freedom. You can find it wherever books are sold. And Norm, do you want to tell people where to find you or more of your work on the internet?
No, okay.
All right.
No,
okay.
She pissed him off.
I love this motherfucker. Yeah. No, I gotta hang out with him. He lives in Coney Island.
Yeah, he lives right there. Yeah.
Fucking crazy bastard. I always go there on my birthday. The next birthday, I'm gonna hang out with Norm Finkelstein.
We're
gonna put out pictures of me and him on the Cyclone.
If you ever wanted to screw me over, you could start a podcast with Norm. That would be a good one. No.
Yeah, no. I like you. Kid. I'll stick with you.
You probably already follow him on the internet, etc.
Oh,
on
yeah,
Twitter,
right.
X, whatever we're calling it.
Yeah.
Take care of yourselves as always, and keep the faith.
I mean, you could tell he was a little pissed off there. That's why he said no.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
That's why I love him, because he is such a like on principle. Fuck you. Yeah, I'm not even going to promote myself.
Right.
Fuck you now.
I'm not try to sell a book. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So look, as anybody who watches the show knows, we have been completely perplexed about why there is such a slavish devotion among some people for Marianne with, she has no qualifications. There's all this horrific reporting. People keep leaving her staff. And then somebody from her inner circle leaked a video to us of one of their
As shocking as what's happening in Palestine right now is, it's really nothing new. This week, we've seen Palestinians get kicked out of their homes at gunpoint, tear gassed, shot and killed, arrested for absolutely no reason, and now Gaza is being bombed by the IDF relentlessly. But it's also important to remember that the Palestinians have been experiencing these things on a daily basis for the last 73 years. So to understand the true weight behind the spike in Israeli terrorism, we have to first understand the historical context, which is why we're speaking with Abby Martin, a journalist from the Empire Files who's reported extensively from occupied Palestine. Abby, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So in the past week or so, the issue of Palestine has basically become the talk of the world. And, you know, there was this whole issue in Sheikh Jarrah, and then we saw the Israeli troops start firing into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And now, just a week later, Israel is collapsing. They're bombing buildings in Gaza. I mean, can you give us an overview of how we got here?
Absolutely. And when you're looking at corporate media, of course, it always starts with the rockets and then, of course, the unequivocal declaration that Israel has the right to self-defense. You absolutely never hear about what precedes such rockets. And you absolutely never hear about the context, the overall analysis of, you know, the historical context that preceded all of this, right? And that continues to be ongoing. As you mentioned, Sheikh Jarrah, which is a neighborhood in East Jerusalem, mobs of extremist settlers that are armed, mind you, have been expelling Palestinians out of their homes that they've had for generations in this neighborhood. We've all seen the videos. They are very harrowing and horrifying. People being thrown out of their homes by force, all of their material objects being thrown violently out of their homes. You have settlers who are obviously from America in the yards of Palestinians saying, if I don't take this home, someone else will, so I have to take it. This neighborhood has been under assault for quite some time. These settlers have just been waiting for what they deem as a mandate from the Israeli courts that they've been fighting for decades to try to seize and expel these Palestinians from East Jerusalem. Now, I think the important context to this also is that East Jerusalem, just like the West Bank, is under brutal Israeli martial law. Military law forbids Palestinians from protesting, convening in groups of 10 or more, raising a Palestinian flag. All of these things are illegal under martial law. And so it is very brave that Palestinians are protesting, let alone resisting in the ways that we're seeing now. So, of course, Sheikh Jarrah was violently mobbed by these settlers, thousands strong, chanting death to Arabs and burn their memories. Palestinians peacefully resisted these mobs of violent settler attacks. And of course, soldiers showed up to brutalize them and violently suppress the protests. And of course, all the Israeli soldiers stand on the side of the settlers. Now, then you have worshippers, hundreds of worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the third holiest site in Islam, stationed in Jerusalem, praying during Ramadan. And then you had IDF soldiers storm the mosque, launch stun grenades and smoke bombs inside, tear gas as well, inside of the mosque, sent hundreds of worshipers to the hospital. This is a war crime, right? This is a war crime that what they did was actually tear gas and launch smoke bombs inside of the hospital after the worshipers were sent there. And then you saw harrowing footage of thousands of extremist settlers chanting, burn their memory again, erase their names outside of the burning Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is a mosque that is ancient. It's 100 years older than the Notre Dame Cathedral. All of the historians were in mass uproar when the Notre Dame Cathedral was burning, and there is quite deafening silence over the intentional burning and attacks on this ancient compound. So all of this preceded the rocket attacks. Hamas, the governing force in Gaza, of course, issued a statement saying, we will retaliate if these attacks continue. And I think Israel made a miscalculation here. I think that they thought that they could violently expel these Palestinians and commit this ethnic cleansing with zero retaliation. And that was a miscalculation on their part because, of course, we saw the rockets fired in response. And Israel, like it always does, issues a wildly disproportionate response, demolishing entire homes with sleeping families inside. And I just want to pose to viewers just this analogy, because I think it's really a stark analogy. Imagine a mob of armed Muslim extremists storming an ancient synagogue, chanting death to Jews. How do you think the media would respond to that? Or how about this? Imagine, let's say, a mob of Trump supporters that all were armed with weapons in an immigrant community in Texas, storming through the immigrant community, seizing people's homes and occupying them, violently throwing out the immigrants on the street. I can't imagine how liberal media would cover such a situation. So it really just shows you the extreme hypocrisy when it comes to media coverage of what's happening in occupied Palestine.
Yeah, and speaking of double standards, I mean, Palestinian activists have been told forever that Israel isn't a racist country, its existence and its history isn't based on the hatred of Arabs, and that it's actually a super progressive country, and that it's the only democracy in the Middle East, so-called, that they respect LGBT rights and so on. But this totally clashes with what we're actually seeing and what you're describing just now. And you're also seeing people, Israelis, who are saying, "Oh, well, this is just the work of some extremists." They're dismissing it as extremism, but it really seems like this sentiment is mainstream in Israel. What do you think all of this that's happened in the last week? What do you think this really says about the political climate in Israel, and how widespread are these views?
I don't know many democracies that actually forbids 5 million residents, that it controls, every aspect of their lives, prevents any sort of democracy for those 5 million residents, 3 million in the West Bank, 2 million in Gaza. So yeah, I wouldn't call Israel democracy, but it is interesting also that they've been able to run with the narrative that they are LGBTQ friendly and that they're this egalitarian place that welcomes, all religions to have a place there. I mean, look, with its foundation, Israel is a settler colonial state. It was founded, of course, in the immediate aftermath of World War II. And right after the foundation of Israel came the Nakba, which was the horrific ethnic cleansing that expelled almost 1 million Palestinians from their homes, razed 500 Arab villages. Those who didn't leave their homes were killed. Several years after that, in 1954, was the Prevention of Infiltration Law that basically said that any refugee trying to return there was a shoot to kill order. They also talked about laying mines in the routes of returns for refugees. So this is an order that's still in place. Of course, the enemy has somewhat shifted. Of course, they shield themselves from being able to commit these crimes with Hamas, now that Hamas is governing the Gaza Strip. But this has always been a rule that's been in place since the foundation of Israel. And Israel itself is a state that is founded on top of indigenous land. It's an ongoing settler colonial project that has been continuing for 73 years. And every single day we see the settler colonial project continue to expand, continuing to annex the entire West Bank, continuing to throw people out of their homes in a violent fashion.
university campuses around the world, London, Australia. What's happening? Chanting in Australia, about gas chambers and, for Jewish people. What is happening on our college campuses? What is happening among the Democratic Party? Some Harvard students now are scrambling to finally rescind their support of their vile letter, actually blaming the victim, Israel, for the brutal Hamas terror attacks. Not everyone disagrees with them. 2024 presidential candidate, former Harvard professor Cornel West said, the students were largely right, but they lack nuance. He joins us now with reaction along with attorney, also Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz is with us. Thank you both for being with us. You always call me Brother Sean. I call you Brother Cornel. I'm not that happy with you tonight.
Then we could talk about why
because we have 31 groups from Harvard. Harvard's supposed to be, I always thought, the top of the top. To get into Harvard, what an accomplishment, what an achievement, what academic excellence you must show, a cut above everyone else. And 31 student groups blaming Israel, blaming the victim. And your answer to this is they are largely right. Hamas that murdered children, Hamas that murdered innocent people.
That's what I said, though, brother.
Okay, that's what they are largely right, but lacking nuance.
No, I didn't say lack nuance. That's the title of the piece.
Okay.
My actual words were, I'll just be very honest.
I got it here in front of me.
The words were that Israel's policies of war crimes and collective punishment against Palestinians.
I'll read it to you. Israel and the United States
Hamas
are
must
primarily
take responsibility for killing innocent people. Anybody who kills innocent people are engaging in barbaric acts.
You said
no matter
Israel,
who they are, what color, what nation, and so forth.
Israel and the United States are primarily
And the United States has supported and enabled.
You explain to this audience. I want you to explain. How is Israel and the United States responsible for beheading 40 children? How?
I'm talking about the context. 545 Palestinian children died in August 2004. Not one American said a word. I believe a Palestinian baby has the same value as an Israeli baby. So when you have that kind of vicious hatred and revenge, you get response of hatred and revenge. They are all wrong. They're all war crimes. They're all to be condemned. But you cannot simply look at this particular moment without the larger backdrop of an ugly occupation and the ugly attacks chronically against Palestinians.
Welcome to a Friday edition of the Nick and CJ show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's popping, my friends, my family? Welcome back to RBN. We have a fantastic show for you guys. I'm glad you decided to cover the story with Sean Hannity and Dr. West. I didn't see the video there, so I have a question for you guys. When is Sean Hannity gonna get his Facebook page pulled? When is he gonna get his Instagram page pulled? Because he repeated a rank lie, something that even the Israeli government and the United States government is running away from now. The debunked claims of chopping the head of Israeli babies off, but there's so many lies said there. I want you guys to understand. 2022 was the deadliest year ever for Palestinians. Do you guys know that? Did Sean Hannity tell you that? Is any of these news stations, any of these Zionists, Democrats, Republicans, are they telling you guys that? 2022 was the deadliest year for Palestinians, where they was raiding mosques, forcing people to demolish their own homes, committing in wide-scale ethnic cleansing. So when Sean Hannity says that Israel is a victim, that is a lie. Israel, and we're gonna take a lot of heat for the next few months. RBN existence is gonna be in question because JB, let me share this. Because we're gonna tell you guys the facts. It's facts over your feelings. It's funny, the right wing that say facts over your feelings, they're now lying while throwing emotional tantrums when people debunk their bullshit. Like Robbie from The Hill, I need to give another spanking because he had to childish emotional outburst.
Yeah, I heard it. I haven't seen it. I heard it though.
I don't know if we got time for it today. If I don't cover it, I may go live tomorrow because this.
There's a lot. There's a lot to cover. There's 5 stories I had to personally cut that I wanted to do because it's just not enough. It's just not enough time. So I don't know if I'm coming with you tomorrow, but it's gonna sometime this weekend. I gotta go live in order to cover.
Yeah, it's all good. We
stories that's falling by the wayside.
Yeah, may have to do extra credit.
Yeah,
and I want to get quickly to the Sean Hannity, Dr. West story because I want you guys to understand Israel is a militarized police state, fam. Israel is a militarized police state where everyone is forced to join the IDF, where they have mandatory military conscription. So how else is the Palestinians supposed to resist their violent occupier? You have BDS, a peaceful movement where we boycott Israeli and people who support Israeli businesses. And that is banned in multiple states, including California and New York, Florida, Missouri. These are states that pass bans against a peaceful protest. You had the Great March of Return, where Palestinians marched in peaceful protest style, and it was mowed down by the Israelis. So what you guys are saying is that Palestinians should die politely. In RBN, we are about to get in trouble. I am about to get in trouble because that is not our position. We are revolutionary blackout. That does not serve our agenda. That does not serve my community to have this idea where we shut up and die because the establishment, we want to protect the established order. We're going to cover this later with the Tim Pool show. Well, that's the position of Tim Pool and the host. Die politely so we can uphold order. I absolutely reject that. And I'm going to get a lot of heat, and I'm going to get in a lot of trouble because of that. So I don't want to hijack this. I'll pass to you, CJ. I just want to make sure I shout this out because we may get in trouble. You guys need to look at other ways to support us. Like look on Patreon, support us via our GoFundMe. JB Font, our RBN brother, is demonetized. Why? Because he told the fucking truth about Israel. He told the reality what's happening instead of people living a fucking fairy tale. Weaponizing pacifism against indigenous people. CJ, we know exactly what people would say in the 1800s at the indigenous people in our country were being genocided. So what happened? There were some Native Americans who said, give me liberty or give me death. Something that white people only care about for white people, right? So they said that a few people fall against the occupiers, and then white people are like, oh my God, look at the Native Americans. They're so violent and barbaric. And then the people, the progressives who weaponize fascism, pacifism, where they was like, oh my God, you Native Americans, you guys need to be more peaceful. You guys need to be more tactical in their approach. And what was the result of that, CJ? Those motherfuckers got genocided. In the millions.
And that oh, let me, I got my phone ringing. Let me pause. My phone's ringing. I don't want you to hear that. My phone's ringing. Hold on a second.
Yeah, you can feel free to chime in. I had to start out with fire today. We gotta be very quick because we got guests coming through.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just let it kind of ring in the background. But what I wanted to say is that this is the reason it's a unique relationship the United States has towards Israel. People, and I'm going to say this every stream that we're talking about this. People have to understand you are looking at if like being a colonizer, an empire, if that is a person, we're at age 85 right now. And then the way the United States looks at Israel is like a 25-year, you spry young chick, you spry young colonizer chick. Look at you in the early. I remember those days when we did that to the Native Americans and the black. This is that's literally what's happening here. This is the reason why do you think the United States don't know that how Israel got there, how Israel was established is not a colonial settler project? You think they don't know that? They know exactly that. This is the reason why they're so understanding when there's a slave revolt. So I'm using language for you to understand. Put it in that context. A slave revolt would be labeled terrorists. What we call slave revolts, terrorists.
Absolutely.
But like it doesn't make any sense, but that's exactly what's going on here. And that's why it's so important. I'll bring it back up the debate, and whenever you want to get it started back. Now to your point, Nick, you mentioned you gave a comparison of people who were kind of milquetoast. There was a killing of the natives, and then there was people who were milquetoast. Well, let's do this, and then it was genocide. So that's sort of how I'm looking at this interview with Cornel West, because he is great, far greater than anybody they let on mainstream cable news talk about this, advocating for Palestinians. But he still has a blind spot. And that's that social democratic blind spot of critique, that you don't have the ability to answer some of their questions effectively. So you look weak in the answer because you're not full-throated with your analysis, radical analysis and radical change needed. You kind of have a radical analysis, but the radical analysis to what needs to be changed is still kind of soft because you're still benefiting from the system. And you're still allowed in these places, and you still want to be allowed. So you really can't go at their pockets in the way that somebody like you and I can do. Go ahead.
That's such a great point, CJ. I'm gonna get in trouble if I'm ever on 10 Pool and Fox News, because these people are doing the thing that the United States want them to say and do to justify their genocide. Where they say, "Oh, well, I condemn Hamas."
Right.
I condemn the United States of America and the failed project of Zionism, which failed in their core tenet of protecting Jewish people. The United States is funding the Israeli state and allowing them to commit a genocide against Palestinians and radicalizing them to the point where they have no choice of armed resistance. So how the fuck am I, a taxpayer to the United States, funding the genocide against the Palestinian people, going to condemn them during their resistance? That is not our right, especially since Israel set the terms of engagement, fam. So Israel killed Palestinian kids, Palestinian civilians. So Palestinians are going to match that rule of engagement. This is grown-up talk. You notice how none of these Zionists talk like grown-ups. They fucking children. Palestinians have every single right to resist their occupier. So I don't condemn Hamas. I don't. I condemn Israel. I condemn the United States. Israel is out of compliance with international law. This is what you say when you're on Sean Hannity. You guys know the only reason why Israel is not prosecuted as the criminal war state that they are is because the United States uses veto power.
Veto power. Mm-hmm.
Do they ever tell you that? And I'm supposed to be sympathetic to this criminal regime? Get the fuck out of here. I'm going to get in trouble very soon because I will not ever give an inch to genocidal Zionists. And I will praise Dr. Cornel West because I'll be negative than positive, right? Because I think he needs to be harder and he needs histy motherfuckers. But you guys see the difference between Dr. West and RFK Jr.? Where RFK Jr., he goes on Fox News, he want to get along with all these motherfuckers. So at least Dr. Cornel West came on to correct the record. He didn't do it the way that I want him to, but it's good to have these people on to push back against Palestinian lifestyle. We'll give him props on that. Right. But with that said, I think he should be stronger. Yeah. I don't want to be all the way negative. They're positive what he's doing here, but he needs to be stronger. And if you're not viciously, violently pushing back on these talking points the way I do, match their energy, because I fucking dare Robbie to come at me the energy he came at Bree, fam. I'll execute him like I did on Venezuela real quick. Real quick. You guys think you have the moral high ground as you supporting a genocidal military police state? I'll fucking bring it on. Bring it on. Go ahead, CJ.
Nick, because you would come with facts. Facts is the only thing that cut down emotional arguments.
Yep.
But it's gonna go one way. Either it's gonna make him more emotional because he's losing the battle. You get what I'm saying? So he becomes even more emotional, or he just gonna give up like he did last time he gave up. And no one invited me on the
shows, bro. My tweets is going viral because I'm unapologetically standing for Palestine right now. And people see my tweets, but none of these motherfuckers invite me on, CJ, right? None of these motherfuckers are even trying to challenge me. These Zionists are just blocking. They can't deal with my heat. Come at me like that, Robbie. Come at me like this, Sean Hannity. Pretend you have the moral high ground on this issue as you were silent when the regime that you're apologizing for was executing Palestinian babies, executing Shireen Abdul Akleh, an acclaimed journalist, an Israeli sniper, shot her in the head. The Israelis killed so many UN peacekeepers that the UN in 2014 sent essentially a cease and assist letter to Israel, begging them to stop killing UN people. You know how Israel responded? Fuck you, we're about to kill some more UN people. And they killed more UN people in their invasion of Gaza today. So go ahead, get angry at me, Sean. Get angry at me, Robbie. I fucking dare you. Go ahead, let's continue.
Yeah, let's see how much of this we get through.
Left wing.
Oh, by the way, we do have a guest that's coming in about 20 minutes or so. So just to announce that.
Anti-Semitism running rampant on university campuses around the world, London, Australia. What's happening? Chanting in Australia, about gas chambers and, for Jewish people. What is happening on our college campuses? What is happening among the Democratic Party? Some Harvard students now are scrambling to finally rescind their support of their vile letter, actually blaming the victim, Israel, for the brutal Hamas terror attacks. Not everyone disagrees with them. 2024 presidential candidate, former Harvard professor Cornel West said, the students were largely right, but they lack nuance. He joins us now with reaction, along with attorney, also Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz is with us. Thank you both for being with us. You always call me Brother Sean. I call you Brother Cornel. I'm not that happy with you tonight.
Then we could talk about why
because we have 31 groups from Harvard. Harvard's supposed to be, I always thought, the top of the top. To get into Harvard, what an accomplishment, what an achievement, what academic excellence you must show, a cut above everyone else. And 31 student groups blaming Israel, blaming the victim. And your answer to this is they are largely right? Hamas that murdered children?
That's the part,
Hamas that murdered innocent.
That's the part where you say the criminal police state that is only protected by the United States is not a victim when they are in an apartheid regime that has committed crimes which led to last year being the most deadly year in history of Palestine. Like, why are we framing them as the victim? That's how I would respond there. Like, why are we framing this police state, this militarized state as the victim here? But let's continue.
That's what I said, though, brother.
Okay,
that's what I said.
They are largely right, but lacking nuance.
No, I didn't say lack nuance. That's the title of the piece.
Okay.
My actual words were, I'll just be very honest.
I got it here in front of me.
The words were that Israel's policies of war crimes and collective punishment against Palestinians.
I'll read it to you. Israel and the United States
Hamas
are primarily
responsibility for killing innocent people.
Yeah, that's on purpose.
And even though Dr. Cornel West could go harder, you guys got to realize Sean Hannity is so scared he won't let this motherfucker talk.
Right.
Just like Anderson Cooper as well. And that's another factor. That shows how weak the Zionist argument is. Like Malcolm X said, there is no intellectual or legal argument for Israel. They're using white phosphorus on Palestinian people right now, a war crime. They have a blockade of electricity, food, and fuel, a war crime. So where's your legal argument? They are out of compliance with international law. There's no legal argument for the state, let alone the morality of it, CJ. Right? You can break it down literally in any level. So you can't let them talk. And that's what he does here. Let's continue.
And and you see it in many interviews, and we've pointed it out. And I'll just name a couple of. Abby Martin, he was an interview. Every time he started to cut to a certain point, she would cut him off. He was with Dana Bash one time. She did the same thing. Anderson Cooper. They can hear where he's going and where he's about to say, oh, it's time to cut this shit off right here. Let me ask a question and interrupt, but let's get back.
Anybody who kills innocent people are engaging in barbaric acts.
You said
no matter
Israel,
who they are, what color, what nation, and so forth.
Israel and the United States are primarily
the United States have supported and enabled.
You explain to this audience. I want you to explain how is Israel and the United States responsible for beheading 40 children? How?
Let me play this again, and I want to hear how you would answer. We can just do this real briefly. Let's listen.
I want you to explain how is Israel and the United States responsible for beheading 40 children? How?
How, Nick? How would you answer this question if you were Cornel West, knowing that this is bullshit? What would you say?
I would say, Sean Hannity, you need to apologize to your audience for misleading them, because even the IDF, Israel, and the Biden administration had to walk that back because that has been long since debunked. So are you willingly spreading misinformation on your channel, sir? That's how I would respond. Like, you willingly spreading misinformation. But let's continue.
Let's see what Cornel says.
I'm talking about the context. 545 Palestinian children died in August 2004.
Now, I need to take this moment, and I promise I'll play it because we're short on time. The reason why this is so important, why this is such a blind spot, think about it, Nick. He just said a mistruth. Let's just say if it's true, though, because it's the same argument whether it's true or not. Let's say if it's true, what you said, it's still the context of the point. But the fact, you see how Cornel West doesn't address what he says? It's an acceptance of a lie or acceptance of a framing.
Yeah, you need to swap that shit down.
That anybody who's on the side of Israel is going to say, see, he don't even say nothing. He just says, whataboutism. And then they're able to just label this whataboutism. When you should say something like, no, Sean, the beheadings are bad. The beheadings by people who are enslaved is a different context. You see, would you say slaves that are trying to revolt during slavery who behead slave owners? What would you call that? Is that terrorism to you? You see how you can flip that shit right on them and use slavery, use that context. But let's get back before we run out of time here.
For not one American said a word. I believe a Palestinian baby has the same value as an Israeli baby. So when you have that kind of vicious hatred and revenge, you get response of hatred and revenge. They are all wrong. They're all war crimes. They're all to be condemned. But you cannot simply look at this particular moment without the larger backdrop of an ugly occupation and the ugly attacks chronically against Palestinians.
Those are not your words. Largely right. Israel and the United States are primarily responsible for this attack.
Right there, CJ. I'm like, bro, I'm saying it right fucking now. You're like, that's not the word you said right in this. I'm like, I'm saying it right now. I'm saying it right now. The fuck you doing deflecting the point to what you were in this piece, in this statement? You said it. Well, I'm on your show right now. We have a chance to have a conversation now. Address my point. Let's continue. Now I'll respond right there.
Professor Dershowitz. Well, I complained when Palestinian children were killed, but I explained why they were killed. Here is one of the leaders of Hamas. To the Palestinian people.
He explained why they were killed. So he's saying, I did bring up Palestinian deaths. And then I explained why they were killed. So you're about to give us a good explanation why the Palestinian kids were killed. And he thinks this is a good thing. The minds of these people, man. Let's listen.
Why they were killed. Here is one of the leaders of Hamas. For the Palestinian people, death has become an industry. The elderly excel at this, and so do the children. This is why we have formed human shields of the women and the children. Hamas is the ones responsible for the killing of Palestinian children. Also, the Hamas has a term. It's called the CNN strategy. And the CNN strategy is...
They can't leave Gaza. Israelis can leave. They don't have to be a participant of violent colonialism. Palestinians in Gaza cannot leave. The parents who have children there cannot take their children out of the area. There's only one willing participant, and that is Israel, that is pulling the trigger on the children that they kill. But then he blames the Palestinian parent for the inability for them leaving. Unbelievable. Let's continue. Unbelievable.
Unreal.
Induce Israel into killing Palestinian children by using...
seduce Israel into killing Palestinian
Oh
children.
my God!
Seduce them, Nick.
Oh my God!
There's some high heels and the slit in the skirt. You seducing them to kill
What the fuck?
But taking somebody's homeland isn't seducing them to do what they did, what Hamas did.
What the fuck?
Using them as human shields, then parade the bodies out on CNN, and you'll see what happens. People like Cornel West will engage in crocodile tears, blame it on Israel when.
Are the kids dead or not? What do you mean crocodile tears? Are they dead? So basically, Alan, I don't know if you can hear it, everybody. He is saying Palestinian kids aren't worth anything because he's saying, yeah, they put them in front. It's their fault. And then you're seducing them into killing them. You see how none of the blame is on anyone who's holding the gun, who's holding the bomb. But let's continue here.
She shouldn't have.
And the entire blame is on the Palestinians, Hamas, for using their children as human shields, and then using their children as shields to permit the killing of Israelis.
What is Hamas's charter? I have the same outrage when Palestinian babies are killed, when Jewish babies are Israeli babies. I want.
Alan said it shouldn't be the same. He's gonna say that. After you comment, you're gonna listen what he says right here.
I'll let play.
Oh yeah, you might want to hear it just to include it.
Yeah,
in what you say here. Let me just rewind it a second.
Shouldn't be
the same outrage. I want you to have the same indignation when Palestinians are killed.
Not when they're killed. Not when they're killed by Palestinians. You can't make a moral comparison when Nazi.
Not when they're killed by Palestinians. You don't think they apply this sort of logic to black people when they go black on black crime? We don't care about their lives. Not when they're killed by blacks. This is how they think of us.
Killed in the bombings of Dresden. I didn't have the same comparison when Jewish kids were put in gas chambers and crematoriums. You're a professor of theology. Don't you understand the moral difference between deliberately murdering a kid and having collateral damage because there are human shields? You're running for president of the United States. What would you do? Let me ask the question.
Okay.
What would you do if terrorists were firing at American children in America and the terrorists were hiding behind Palestinian children? Would you allow the killing of Americans to continue, or would you go and get the terrorists, even if it meant possibly collateral damage on Palestinians? What would you do?
I'll tell you exactly what I would do. First, truth and morality tend to be two casualties in any context of war. I would want to tell the American people the truth. I would tell them what the context is, how we found ourselves in this situation. And I would not jump for a military invasion and a genocidal attack on a
genocidal attack on Gaza.
No.
It's not a genocidal attack when you're killing terrorists.
This is like Warsaw, 1943. Where do they go?
Where do they go? Yeah. Let me tell you where they go. Do they go to the UN?
You heard everything that Alan said, Nick, and that's the reply that Cornel. You see how he doesn't address the nonsense framing that the emotional framing overly propagandized framing horrendous sort of atrocities that you're trying to portray that is happening to Jews. He never addresses it. He never pushes back on that context. That is the weak spot of social democracy. They don't really have an answer for that question. They need to have an answer. We would have Ajama would have an answer like this, Nick. Mm-hmm. Margaret Kimberly would have an answer like this. Go ahead, Nick, if you were going to chime in here.
There's only one country here. Well, Palestine not a country because Israel stole their sovereignty.
That is true.
But there's only one people here that is out of compliance with international law, and that is Israel. Palestine has the legal right, based on the UN Charter, to resist their occupiers. And this claim that you are using, Alan Dershowitz, that Palestinians have human shields, it's the exact opposite. And I remember people got mad at me, but they can't disprove it. As I said, every single Israeli adult is a participant because they have to be part of mandatory military service. Israeli children, just like Palestinian children, are victims because children can't consent. Children can't consent on where they live, so they are victims. Meanwhile, Palestinian children can't leave, especially in Gaza. They can't leave. You know, the average life expectancy in Gaza is 18, so most of these kids don't grow up.
Jesus Christ,
so
that is
Israeli children, their parents can always allow them to leave the apartheid state. So who's actually using the children as human shields? It'll be Israel, because they are unwillingly forcing these children to live in a settler colonial state, a state where Zionism has failed. Zionism, and the promise of Zionism, is to have a state where Jews can be safe, a Jewish safe haven. That has failed. There is nowhere that is more unsafe for Jews than the state of Israel. But you guys let your children live there? So who's actually using human shields here? Let's continue. Then I see Alex in the background.
Yeah, just give us a couple more minutes. Yeah, a couple more minutes. We'll play this, and then we'll get our guest in. Thankfully, he is here on time. Love it when our guests are here on time. So thanks for being here on time, sir. Let's play a little bit more. Here.
UN is keeping Gaza to they go to no. The UN has places in Gaza. They go to the 11 UN people that they killed in the last few days. They go to Egypt. They go. Wait a minute. Let me make another thing clear. Gaza City is very dense, but Gaza itself, the Gaza Strip, there's lots of room. The Israelis have said, get out of Gaza City, go to Rafah, go to Khan Yunis, go to other places. And you know what Hamas is saying?
No water, no food, no electricity.
You know what Hamas is saying? Hamas is saying, don't go.
Oh, I'm not here to defend Hamas.
Well, you are here.
I'm not defending Hamas.
Wait a minute.
You see that? What did you say about Hamas? I'm going to bring it down because it's the same topic, so we can bring the guests in and just continue on Israel. But you see that? I'm not going to defend Hamas. Why not? What did you say about Hamas earlier, Nick? You said anything. You asked the question. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you say it. Go ahead.
There's debate within the Palestinian community about Hamas, and they will continue to have that debate. That debate is not for us to have. That is for the Palestinians to debate among themselves. I will not ever condemn people's legal right to armed resistance. And that is what Hamas engages in armed resistance. It is not our position to throw Hamas under the bus. They are following the rules of engagement that Israel set. Israel targets civilians, Israel bomb and kill their children. So of course Hamas or anyone else will match the rules of engagement that Israeli set. Correct? But before I get on another rant, I want to introduce our guest here. I would love to get his thoughts on this. Came with a high recommendation of our friend Zoya's Life. Welcome. It's great to meet you, my friend. First time we had a chance to talk. Alex Avinia. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Welcome to RB. And I want to pass it to you so you can introduce yourself, since this is the first time you're on our network, your background and the background of your advocacy on this issue. So I'll pass to you, Alex, for an introduction.
No, thank you for having me. My name is Alex Avinia. I'm actually a historian of Mexico and Latin America here in Arizona at Arizona State University. So I'm actually, as I told Zoe, I was like, man, I'm not even an expert on this. I just have some thoughts, but I'm very humbled and I'm happy to be here. And I guess in terms of in relation to this topic, I was in college when the second Intifada happened. And I think that's when I started really paying attention to this topic. Following the news introduced me to the writings of people like Edward Said, the poet Mahmoud Darwish. And ever since then, I've been, for a variety of reasons that we could get into if you guys want to, because there are some direct connections between Israel, between settler colonialism in Palestine and Latin America, and more specifically.
I would love to hear that, actually. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. So thank you guys for having me. But I'm just like a humble, Twitter shit poster that I got invited to be on your guys' great show. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually would be interested in hearing that analysis, especially considering your background and experience on Latin America. Something I always read about and try to learn to get better on, and is how U.S. colonialism and imperialism affected the politics and daily lives of my Central American and Latin American brothers and sisters. I want to get your thoughts on this before we dive into that topic. You have the West, what I call this mass genocidal psychosis that's forming, where people are just using the most ridiculous arguments. Even people like Ben Shapiro on the right are literally using AI-generated images of decapitated babies to justify genocide. You had Joe Biden, who lied in public. This should be an impeachable offense. He lied saying that he saw beheaded babies. Why? In order to justify the genocide of Palestinian babies. Now, this is from the AP. Palestinians flee northern Gaza after Israel orders 1 million to evacuate. So if you guys don't know, the unhinged police state Zionist regime, they gave the order for millions of people to flee in 24 hours. There are people who have disabilities, people who rely on electrical support that the Israelis cut off. It's an order that they know is not possible. The same way that Benjamin Netanyahu told everyone in Gaza to evacuate, knowing that they live in an open-air concentration camp. So I want to get your general thoughts, Alex, and I'll pass CJ for any thoughts on that headline as well, on this mass psychosis that's going on in the West that is justifying the massive Palestinian genocide that's going on. I really can only show you guys headlines. JB got demonetized. We gotta be very careful what we show you guys, because they are using that as justification to take down pro-Palestinian channels. So just in general, Alex, what are your take on the latest happenings in this push to justify the genocide of the Palestinian people?
I mean, I think one of the things that stands out to me is that we've had more than a year of this argument, but applied from a different perspective in relation to Ukraine and Russia, right? So we were told for more than a year by mainstream media to think about a certain way in regards to the collective punishment of civilian populations. And after what happened on Saturday, it's been reversed. And now we are living in a moment where the collective punishment of civilians is not only quote unquote legal under international law, but you have all the Western governments, the most powerful governments in the world, lining up behind it. To me, I mean, this is unreal to me. Like I've been kind of like on this emotional roller coaster, watching following this stuff on the news, following this stuff on social media, where you have the most powerful governments on this planet saying that it's okay to collectively punish more than 2 million people who live in one of the most highly dense places on this planet that has been an open air prison since 2006, 2007. The collective punishment of civilians as enacted by Russian forces in Ukraine was highly illegal and immoral, but not in this case. And that really stands out to me. This is one of the things that I've been thinking about for a while. Historically, if you think about, and I tweeted something about this a couple of days ago, historically, any sort of revolutionary process, though, is going to and has faced a similar media type war. I tweeted something about, thank goodness Twitter wasn't around during the Haitian Revolution. Because can you imagine some of the more mainstream perspectives and ideas that would have come out in regards to what happened in August 1791, when Black slaves in northern Haiti and the most lucrative, most profitable sugar plantation in the world took up arms and started killing their masters. And we can track that, right? We can track that by looking at French, British, and American newspapers at the time and how they represented the actions of the folks in what eventually became Haiti and waging a successful slave revolution that led to the world's first modern Black sovereign state. So it's to see this counterinsurgency waged through media is really difficult to parse through in a variety of different ways, right? I mean, I think another thing that I've been watching is how, as usually is done, Americans tend to make this shit about themselves. Right. So one of the first, of course, the immediate instinct of moderates and liberals is to punch down and to punch left. Yes. And that's all we've had like the last, there's been some really good pushback, but in mainstream media that reaches the majority of Americans, we've had one think piece after another that is punching down and punching left. While we are witnessing in real time, like ethnic cleansing. I don't know what to make of that. As a historian, you read about this kind of stuff, you research this kind of stuff, you look at primary sources and documents, but it's a hell of a thing to watch it unfold in real time. And it's I don't know, man, emotionally, it's horrific.
Yeah, as a historian, I want to ask you about Western liberal democracy being completely exposed because of this issue. All the quote unquote right wing free speech absolutists, they have nothing to say now that Western governments, because they know they're in the wrong in this issue, like Western liberal democracy do. They had to crack down on dissent in response. So this is what I criticize, and this is what made RBN a shock to the professional managerial class who are deeply influenced by Western chauvinist belief. And this is largely Bernie Sanders and the DSA wing, where they truly believe Western liberal democracy is something to be praised. But Western liberal democracy, they will allow you to criticize the government. But the second that you take action on that criticism, watch you see the state violence happen. That's when that's when authoritarianism cracks up. So I want to get your general reaction. I also want to get CJ's reaction as well, because I have a hotspot video that just dropped. I'll upload it on YouTube right before we went live. I posted it on Twitter while I cover this. You had Germany and Berlin who banned pro-Palestinian protests. You have France that is now banning pro-Palestinian protests. So, Alex, I want to get your perspective as a historian. What your general reaction to this? The crackdown on free speech that no one is talking about other than a select few that's coming from the West. This increased authoritarianism. You see it on Ukraine. You see it on issues of Cuba, China, and now the Palestinian crackdown is becoming even more intense with our friend JB, our brother, being demonetized for telling the truth about this. But Alex, I said no, I'll pass to you for your perspective, and CJ, you can chime in if you want to as well.
Yeah, I think free speech as a concept is one thing, right? But when it actually gets put into practice in specific contexts, it particularly in places like the United States, it tends to coincidentally always favor the powerful, the privileged, those that have capital, those that have power. So it's a hell of a thing to watch France try to ban pro-Palestine, anti-genocidal protests, right? Because France has a really terrible record with this. Right. In 1961, you had Algerians who were protesting French actions in Algeria during that country's war of national liberation. And the French police killed more than 100. They drowned a bunch of these protesters by pushing them into the river, the river that goes in the middle of France, Paris. So it's, free speech in practice in the way that it actually gets implemented in contexts that are shaped by unequal power relations. In the US at the very least, always tends to favor those with power, those with access to media, those with access to having their voices heard. And one of the interesting things, though, in the reporting on the banning of rallies and protests in places like Germany and France, and one of the things that stood out to me is that obviously we see that these Western governments are wholly behind what the Israeli government is doing and is horrifically going to do. But the streets are not with their governments. And I've seen just this morning, I've seen videos from different areas of the Middle East, people coming into the streets with waving their Palestine flags, trying to force their governments to do something to prevent what looks like will become a horrific genocide, right? Based on what the Israeli government has been saying the last 2 days. During the last World Cup in Qatar, the one flag that was most ubiquitous in all the games, especially thankfully, Morocco advanced to the later stages of the World Cup. The Moroccan national team, every time they won a soccer game, after that, when they were celebrating on the field, they had their Palestinian flags. You had all the fans in the stadiums waving Palestinian flags. So one of the things that we're seeing here, and this is why there's a crackdown by the very Western governments that say they're defenders of free speech, is because the streets are not with these actions, and they're not with the governments that are supporting these horrific actions.
And
go ahead, CJ. Go ahead.
Just to add a little point here that both of you are kind of touching on. Good guys don't ban shit, Nick.
Yeah,
and they don't ban. Good guys don't ban shit. You know what I'm saying? You see what's happening in Ukraine. You see what's happening here. Like, if you're on the right side of morality, of humanity, you don't have to ban shit. You get what I'm saying? Like, if we go, everybody deserves healthcare. whoever says I'm against healthcare, we don't need to go, you're banned. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I'm on the right side. So I want somebody who's against morality, who's against humanity, to give their point so everybody can see how stupid you are. But when you on the opposite side, then you have to ban the person who's saying, no, everybody does deserve health care. You get what I'm saying? So it's a clear indication to me of they know that they're wrong, or at least the people are going to see, like you said, the people in the streets are going to see that they're wrong.
And you guys see what they're using there? Look at this liberal democracy. Look at the freedom ring here in France. Tear gas. You guys know tear gas is a war crime? They don't tell you that in school, don't you?
Yeah.
Tear gas is a war crime, fam. Western governments use it on their own people because who's gonna hold them accountable? Their mindset is, oh, well, we ain't using it on combatants, we're using it on our own people. And police in our country had lied for years, decades, on the effects of tear gas. And this is just being exposed by science here recently. There was tear gas used in Seattle that caused many people with asthma to suffer immense health consequences. Some passed away. There were a lot of miscarriages where people who was pregnant that attended George Floyd rallies miscarried immediately. So isn't it funny the pro-life conservatives is okay with tear gassing pregnant women? Very interesting, right? So go ahead, Alex. Feel free to interrupt me and talk. I monologue a lot. You can chime in. I won't get mad. I won't get mad.
Visually, we get to see where free speech ends, right? It ends at the end of a police baton. I mean, that's what free speech is, right? Because there's always a side, a faction, or a group that gets to decide the limits and the parameters of what constitutes free speech and what doesn't constitute it. Because free speech is an ideal, but it also exists within contexts that are structured, again, to repeat myself, with unequal power relations, right? So this is what we're seeing in this video from France, right? Is this the one from France where you have people who are saying, we don't want 2.4 million people to be ethnically cleansed, to be bombed, to be killed. And the French police go out there and do what police everywhere in the world do, right? I mean, the police are always a good reminder about what happens to free speech when you're out in the street protesting against things like we're witnessing right now throughout, not just in France, but in many other countries as well. But you see it. There was a city in England that tried to ban, I think they stepped back from it, but they tried to ban the public display of Palestinian flags. Again, there's this really sick thing, right, where they're trying to conflate Palestine, all of Palestine, with what happened on Saturday with Hamas, right? They're trying to conflate a broad array of violent and non-violent forms of Palestinian resistance into what happened in one day. And then that's being used as justification for things like, we are going to ban the public display of the Palestinian flag in this random English city. Or another video I saw last week where I think it was in Sheffield, they put up an Israeli flag, but then a protester went up there, took it down, and put up a Palestinian flag, and that was met with a certain level of police brutality. Right, so it's free speech is again, it's a great ideal in theory, but when we see it put into practice in certain contexts, then we really get to see what that ideal becomes, and we're seeing that play out in real time right now.
Look at how they frame it in the media to justify it.
Yeah,
and I speak out against black shit libs in the Black Congressional Caucus all the time for weaponizing race issues against us, don't we, CJ?
Yes.
So if I was a Semitic person, do you guys know how fucking furious I would be? I would be fucking screaming because they are using anti-Semitism to justify a crackdown on the freedom of assembly. CJ, imagine how mad we would be if they was like, yeah, we need to combat anti-black racism, so we got to ban protests. Like, don't fucking use my struggle as a way to increase your government power. It's actually disgusting what they're using. I'll read the headline for people who are only listening. European leaders pledge crackdown on anti-Semitism as incidents rise. And it's so disgusting. People who speak out, to call people who speak out on the apartheid genocidal state of Israel, which include many Jewish people, like Max Blumenthal, we're going to show you guys that here soon, as anti-Semites. That is the height of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Also because the Palestinians are Semitic people. absurd rationalization by the West. Anyone want to chime in before I move on? Going once, going twice.
Yeah, just as quickly. I mean, these type of headlines and these type of characterization actually hurts and undermines the actual struggle against anti-Semitism. I mean, and that's so. You know, things like guys going into synagogues in the U.S. and murdering Jews, like that. Like that's anti-Semitism that we should be organizing and fighting against. But the disingenuous use of it, like in this headline, actually hurts the cause of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I want to show you guys. I should show you guys this earlier. Kind of did it in the wrong order, but you guys see how France banned protests. So the French, being the French, was like, "We fucking dare you to enforce this shit." So I'll read this tweet from my friend Sarah.
I saw that.
She said, "Wow, a massive demonstration in solidarity with Palestine is currently taking place in Paris, France. People are challenging Macron's ban on pro-Palestinian protests by chanting, 'We are all Palestinian.'" Let me turn the audio on just real quick. I covered this in my house. We are all Palestinians. And they are right. We are all Palestinians. That's why I have the position I do that, scaring the shit out of white people right now. Why does it make sense for us to condemn people who are resisting their violent occupier, CJ? How does that serve us, people who've been victim of the same violent regime? Does not. I'm sorry. But let me listen to this bass ad chant. Well, the reason why.
Hey, Alex, you.
Go ahead.
I got a question for Alex. So, Alex, you mentioned earlier, you alluded to a connection, because you said you were a Mexican historian or Mexico historian. So, what sort of connection, or is it historical? You're saying, is there a connection to Palestine or to the struggle, or what were you meaning when you mentioned that earlier?
Well, no, I think we have journalists in the borderlands region like Todd Miller who talk about a Palestine-Mexico border. And the way they talk about that is because a lot of the border and fence technology that currently exists on the U.S.-Mexico border is technology provided by Israeli companies. And it's technology is Israeli technology that was developed and tested and implemented in Palestine first. And then they use these companies like Elbit Industries, I think it was Elbit Industries. They will then use their what they've done building walls and fence regimes in Palestine as a way to sell it to governments around the world, including the US government. So I'm currently in Arizona. I think all of our fixed non-manned sensor technology on the border with Mexico they all come from this Israeli company. And they come, they organize, they organize workshops, they organize sales pitches, and their sales pitches, particularly the ones that are articulated by corporations like Elbit, is to say this technology has been tested and proven in Palestine, it works, and therefore you guys should implement it on the U.S.-Mexico border.
Wow.
So that's a very clear, direct connection between. And I really like the characterization by some, like, I highly suggest reading the books and the articles of Todd Miller. But we do have a Palestine-Mexico border in the sense that it's Israeli tech, border tech, that has been implemented here, particularly here in Arizona, on the border between Arizona and Mexico. So we also have this this weird connection, right? And I wrote about this a couple years ago for a website called Liberated Text run by Louis Alday. I reviewed a book, an old book from the 80s about Israeli sales of weaponry to Latin America. It's a history of it. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that in the late 70s and early 80s, you had Israelis, essentially state-run armaments industry companies, go to Central America and sell weaponry and give military and counterinsurgency expertise to death squad regimes in places like El Salvador and Guatemala. The US in the late 70s, early 80s wasn't able to do that directly or legally because of Congress. So the Israelis, though, were not beholden to the Israeli government, and these companies were not beholden to human rights regulations that were being passed by the U.S. Congress. So they went and worked with some of the worst elements in places like Guatemala and El Salvador in the late 70s and early 80s, right? In the middle of these horrific death squad regimes that then spurred, hundreds of thousands of refugees in the 80s that came to the United States. And if you think about after 2010, when we started to get another cycle of Central American refugees and asylum seekers, they were fleeing countries who were still suffering the effects of what had happened in the late 70s and early 80s, where the Israelis were waging what one journalist called Uzi diplomacy, which was they would go and connect with the worst of these death squad regimes and provide counterinsurgency techniques and expertise and weapons to these regimes that were trying to put down popular efforts of resistance, including some left-wing guerrilla movements, the famous FMLN in El Salvador, and a guerrilla coalition that existed in Guatemala. There's this really, in doing this research, there was this crazy quote I came across by a Salvadorian, one of these like Salvadorian death squad leaders or military officers. He said they asked him about why he preferred working with the Israeli weapons companies, not the Americans. And his quote was, Americans know nothing. Don't forget that they lost in Vietnam, but the Israelis do know. So they used, so in the 70s and 80s, they used the experience of settler colonialism in Palestine to sell weapons and expertise to these Central American countries. And then by the late 90s and throughout the 2000s, they've used, again, those experiences of building walls and fences and technology in Palestine to sell it to Americans, both political parties, right? Because their policies on the border is bipartisan. So now we have all this Israeli tech on the border.
Yeah, well said.
That is amazing connection there.
Yes. I'm trying my best to follow politics in the global South. And I think it's
no, we definitely got to have him back on, Nick. I know you do Nick at Night maybe, but for a Nick and CJ show, got to have him just to have him for a couple of segments instead of just one, just to explore some of these connections, because we really don't know the depths of colonial settlers sort of like teaming together with ideas and like picking up what other settler colonial sort of projects do and wanting to implement them in other places. Just amazing to me. But Alex, go ahead, Nick, if you want to close it.
Anything you want to shout out before we let you go?
You could find my work. I mean, I'm on Twitter. Probably been on there too much the last week or so, but
same here.
I have a website, alexanderavina.com. I think most of my stuff that I've written is on there. Again, I focus mostly on Latin America and Mexico, with the exception of that one article that I really like. Actually, the reason I got into that article is because my own research deals with Mexican guerrilla movements and armed struggle in the 60s and 70s, and in the Mexican military, they used an airplane in the 70s to disappear people, right? They would put these people into planes, fly them over the Pacific Ocean and dump them into the ocean, these horrific things called death flights. And the plane that they used was an Israeli-made plane called the Arava plane, which was a short landing and takeoff plane that was especially made for counterinsurgency. And that's really, in terms of my own personal research, that's what brought me back into this issue of thinking about the circulation of counterinsurgent and settler colonial knowledge, and how it kind of makes its way around the world. And it continues to affect us today, especially living here in the U.S.-Mexico borderlands.
Yeah, well said, Alex. It was great to meet you, and we definitely will have you back on. And interested in hearing your analysis. So thank you for joining us. I'll put you in the back.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna read a few super chats so we don't get buried, CJ.
Yes,
and
sir.
And then the next
story
we're gonna cover. The next cover will be the story will be the Max Blumenthal and Tim Pool conversation, which I think is extremely important to cover because Max Blumenthal is the perfect motherfucker for this job. The perfect motherfucker for this job because I'm emotional. Like sometimes that helped because that helped me slay Robbie, right? I was able to control my emotion with my debate with Destiny, but you guys see with Vosh and other exchanges, I'm an emotional guy. Not always great for debates, you know what I mean? Like you need someone who's a cold assassin, someone who can put their emotions aside and just fucking snipe and assassinate people with your facts. So big shout out to Max Blumenthal. We're gonna cover that here soon. So let me get to a big shout out to a few new members we have. Ronald Shaw, Bruce Moore, and Skyzar. What a powerful name. Big shout out to everyone who's a new member. I see Sean as well. I'll try to get all the member shout outs first here. Thank you, Sean, for being a member for 4 months. Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate everyone for being a new member. Now I'm gonna read a few super chats. So we don't get too buried, because I don't want to rush through super chats, because I appreciate them. So I think it's better to try to split them up.
No, that's good. You do a couple here now. We got a little time to do it.
Yeah, thanks for the $4. Avery Bella, greetings from Yakima. Love you guys. Just got my RBN hoodie in the mail this week. Big shout out to all the fam that got RBN merch. It's been a long time coming. You guys are gonna see me rocking the NATO as a terrorist organization a lot. You guys gonna get tired of me fucking wearing that shit. Anyway, thanks for $5. Guys are the guy with the powerful name. What specific role do you think the Biden administration plays right now on the Israel-Palestine war? Biden should be impeached for lying about seeing evidence of beheaded babies. And then the Biden administration had to immediately put out a statement. They said, oh, well, he was just speaking generally. He saw general atrocities. No, Biden lied. CJ, Biden lied. You got to understand this. In order to justify the upcoming Israeli genocide. Do you guys know how fucking crazy that is? That is the kind of shit that they told us Trump would do. You know what I mean? And people like AOC and Bernie, they supported Biden, who's doing this. And now AOC is tweeting about everything else except the person that she supported.
That's what they always do. They always do that.
But AOC trying to stay face like a motherfucker, because if you look at them as just pure text, they're good tweets, right? Just look at the text, no context, right? Good tweets. Then you realize she voted president on the Iron Dome. Then you realize that she endorses the same party that complicit with the genocide. So everyone who supported Joe Biden, and this is my framing that's going to piss a lot of people off, but because I will, that's why I told you guys this morning, like, guys, I'm going to take a lot of heat in the next few months. And I mentally prepare myself, because I've been covering this issue for years. I'm going to take a lot of heat for this, because I'm not bending to colonizer imperialist minds, right? Like the Bernie wing do. So now they see the genocide coming up, and now they're trying to save face. They tweeted, "Oh, we gotta stop the genocide." AOC like, "We gotta stop." What you guys are doing?
Ilhan do that too. Yeah,
it's Biden that's providing material support. Yeah,
you can't do both, and that's what they want you to believe. That's what they all want you to believe. I can make a deal with the imperialists, but when they do imperialism, I'm not with them on that shit. Like, that's not how it works. It's a package. Yeah. You did make a deal with imperialist murderers. It comes with the other stuff. So it lays on your lap, but this is them trying to save face. It's simply not good enough. That's like Sunrise Movement trying to save face. It's not good enough. We're dying. The earth is dying. It's not good enough. I'm sorry. It's not good enough that you got duped or you decided to make a deal with them. It's not good enough. Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you, Biden, for your consistent super stickers. And thank you, John, for 1999. Baby boomers and the people who suck up to them want to keep the Judeo-Christian Greco-Roman Imperial Project gang. Absolutely. I see what you're saying, John. I butchered that, but that's well said. Historically, this is Western imperialism versus Persian Empire in Eastern Orthodox world. Absolutely. Well said, Super Chat John. You guys are going to see in the debate with Max and Tim Pool, one of the guys is going to constantly try to make it about religion. And Max knocks it down easily. Like, the only argument that justifies Zionism is rooted in wacky fucking books. Like, guys, one of the quickest way to lose me, once again, I'm secular. A lot of the world is secular. One of the fastest ways to lose me is when you start quoting books and shit to justify your colonialism. You know what I mean? Lose me real quick with that shit. Thank you for $2. Go ahead, CJ, if you want to chime in, but thank you for $2. Super Seamster Sewing Show. Good code point, CJ, using slave rebelling analogy. Well said. I'll read 2 more. We will get to all the super chats. I'll try and cut them up so I can give all of them proper attention. So I'll read 2 more, and then we move on to our segment that you guys have been waiting for. Thank you for $5. Cootie Weaver. No person of color locked in a concentration camp by white supremacists owes those same white supremacists a moment of peace. The end.
Goody Weaver.
Absolutely.
That's a good ass tweet. Good as
Absolutely, bro. And we making motherfuckers terrified because we're telling you guys universal truths that people need to acknowledge. White people know this too. That's why I'm not giving any quarter, because these are the people that say give me liberty or give me death. CJ, these are the same people who prop up the Second Amendment. Why? They say, oh, we need a Second Amendment to stand up to tyranny. But then when black people or Palestinians stand up to tyranny, they're like, oh my God, terrorism. What the fuck do you think the Second Amendment look like in practice? Delusional, childlike motherfuckers. Propaganda in this country turn grown-ass adults into children. They think like fucking children. You know what I mean? This is fucking real life. And I am not going to condemn the tools that we're going to necessarily use to resist our violent oppressor. Because like Kwame Ture said, peace and pacifism is good if your enemy has a conscience. Does the violent fascist Israelis, does it look like they have a fucking conscience? Absolutely not. Thank you for $5, Everton. I wanted to point out West had more heat for Jimmy than these evil people. Stuff like this is why I can't get behind West. He's always weak against Empire. Not wrong there, because that's the same thing. I don't understand that, because, and it's just a general criticism of the PMCs, right? You guys saw how Marianne Williamson was grilled on Fox News? I saw the interview she had with Jesse Waters or some other guy, and he kept cutting her off constantly, like mocking her chances. He was so condescending to her. But Marianne Williamson was all smiles in that interview.
Yeah.
Just going with she wouldn't call him a mansplainer. She wasn't upset with him. But then I had her on my show, and I showed her a ton of grace. Let her go on minute diatribes without answering my question before I was like, hey, man, you going to fucking answer my question or not? You know what I mean? But then she gets mad at me when I was way nicer than her than Fox News or CNN or anyone else. The same way with Dr. Cornel West. Like, he doesn't flip at Sean Hannity and the other guy, but he flips at Jimmy Dore. I don't understand. Like, it should be the exact opposite. You know what I mean? You should be embracing us, independent media, with love, instead of they embrace corporate media and cable news with love, and then they go on our shows and they want to fucking boss us around. It's weird. It is weird.
Class.
One last super chat. Thank you, Mark. I would like to hear. Oh, too late. Sorry. I would like to hear Alex's views on the Zionist argument that there's never been a Palestinian state. Love RBN. Well, Israel and the Zionists are the people who prevented that. So that's always a weird argument for them to make. Every time Gaza try to build infrastructure that will make them independent of Israel, the same way they try to build a power plant, Israel bombs it. Like Israel bombed the last independent power plant that they had in Gaza in the mid-2000s. Whenever Palestinians invest their money, like they do, they invest their money in water. What do? They poison their water. Now 99% of the water not drinkable. Anyway, I'll spare you guys. I can go on all day because we gotta get to our next segment. In the Timcast conversation with Max Blumenthal is definitely interesting. I want to show you guys this guy. Don't know his name. He introduced himself as an anti-communist, anti-counter-revolutionary fighter. Now, I have no idea if this guy was fucking serious when he said that, because that's so absurd to say. But he introduced himself with that with a smile. Actually, let me see if I can find the timestamp. I didn't have it planned because this is a 2-hour show, and because of Max Blumenthal, I got maybe an hour into this. I watched more Tim Pool watching this show than I did combined, period.
Anything.
All the clips,
of anything.
I got like an hour in. So I got timestamps to shorten this segment on exchanges I think are important. Let me show you guys this one, because I think this is when he introduces himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte, very failed musician, vocalist for All That Remains, anti-communist, and counter-revolutionary. Hey, guys.
See, once again, I don't know if he's serious or not, because he introduced himself as an anti-communist. Do you guys know the atrocities that anti-communists inflicted on the global South? They killed 20% of the Korean population. They starved the North Korean people simply because they chose a different economic model than them. So it's going to be very interesting. This guy who praises anti-communists, right? I really gotta be careful whether this guy was joking or not, because based on his argument,
I think he's serious. I think he's serious because I mean, just right there, like, because they're all introducing each other, and he's not joking. Nobody's laughing, and I believe he says something to that effect in multiple interviews. Like when he interviews people, they kind of go around and says stuff like that. They kind of, I'm not saying him, but I'm saying at the show, that's what they do. They kind of go around and let the person kind of introduce themselves. But I think because he uses anti-counter-revolutionary and anti-communist, I believe that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need two punchlines. Like, one of them would be a punchline that I'm against.
Yeah, so I will always
people.
have that caveat on this beginning of the segment that he may be joking, but based on his arguments I see in this debate, he's not, because he has counter-revolutionary beliefs. He's a clear anti-communist. And it's weird that he is like, oh my God, the atrocities of Hamas. He doesn't try to this debate. Do you know what the fuck communism, how much? There's millions of people that was killed. Ask John Bolton. Ask the Reagan administration. And who's the person that I'm blanking on his name? The person that Biden just hired. Elliot Abrams. Ask Elliot Abrams about his communism tactics. So there have been all these people that was victim of torture, all these gross actions, but you're an anti-communist, but you want to take the moral high ground on this issue. So one thing I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna get to this video next now, Tim Pool was actually way more chill than I thought he would be in this interview, because I don't know that much about Tim Pool. I know him as a culture warrior. Anything I see about him, he in the culture war. But I view he probably someone who's very hard to diagnose politically, because he's anti-war, into the culture war, repeat right-wing talking points. But he immediately acknowledges, like, Max Blumenthal is out of his league. So he tried to put back. He asked Max like these follow-up questions, right? And then immediately he's smart enough to realize, like, man, I can't debate this motherfucker. So good point, Max. I need to bring someone on that can dispute it. Meanwhile, this anti-communist guy, he keeps going at Max, and then Max will slap this motherfucker down with facts. Then he will get emotional. Max will slap him down with facts again, and then he would be quiet. And I know it's something around the 40 to 50 minute mark. And I'm summing this up because we're not going to show you the whole thing. He kind of chill out because he realized, his anti-communist guy realized he's out of his league. Like, and he stopped being as combative. That's why I'm going to show you guys this part, because I believe this part up next is the most combative that I saw. If you're interested, I do recommend watching this, not because of Tim Pool, but because I want you guys to see how to disarm and destroy these Zionist people. I was extremely impressed by Max. He's definitely a much better person to have in this place than me and many other people. So let's start here.
Agreed.
Because I was like,
for his demeanor. It's for his demeanor, specifically for his demeanor. Knowledge. It's great to have his knowledge, but knowledge with the same demeanor he has in this particular context, with so many people watching, you're gonna get more ears by calmly just kind of swatting shit away. So absolutely.
Yeah. So let's watch this here. We got a lot to get through here, so I was trying to let it play a bit. Max does a good job, so I don't know if I even had to interrupt a lot because Max destroys them. I want to do that preface so guys know what to expect. So for a second time, I'm gonna let Lyle just play CJ.
Into Israel, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry, into Israel. There's plenty of evidence that they killed innocent people. There's plenty of evidence that they, carried out what amounts to a terror attack. It's not a military operation. There's plenty of evidence. So
there are videos you don't want to watch.
Absolutely. And I don't need to believe that they were cutting off babies' heads to condemn the attack on Israel. So, if it turns out that it happened, I'm not shocked. I mean, I was alive when ISIS, when the
So what he does here is connect the Palestinian resistance with ISIS, as you can see him continue. And of course, Max is going to cut his head off on this point.
Islamic State was in existence, and I saw videos of them cutting off people's heads and doing terrible things. I remember 9/11. You don't need to have this particular thing to be real to be like, okay, terrorists do really horrible, horrible things.
Can you pause it right there? Because he's making a point. He's making a point that is the design of propaganda. Absolutely. And I covered this in the I Am the Revolutionary series, where I covered the father of propaganda. You don't have to believe the specific items, but propaganda over the years creates the conditions for you to believe a silly bullshit over there, silly bullshit over there. You may not believe all of them. It just needs you to get you to relieve some in certain instances. That's all propaganda is trying to make fertile ground for multiple lies to blossom. You get what I'm saying? Some may not, some may blossom. So that's the point. It's curious though, because he doesn't even know he's making the point, but he doesn't know he thinks what he's thinking because of propaganda. He doesn't even know that's what's happening. Yeah, he doesn't even get that. But go ahead.
So Max is going to knock this point down, but you guys see how he ties Palestinian resistance, which they had the legal right to do against their violent genocidal state, to 9/11. He invokes 9/11 and ISIS. So I will shut up because Max destroys him on this point. And this is a consistent theme in this conversation where this guy, who is literally the main center of detention, like Tim Pool was actually chill. Like from what I've seen, like he put back on Max, which you expect, but he would chill. This guy was unhinged and he got destroyed. So
Tim knows. Tim knows he doesn't know. And that's one thing about Tim. I've seen a couple of, because I covered 2 interviews from when he doesn't know, he was just, hey, I don't really know. So I'm not even going to try and act like I pretend like I do. So that's one good thing about him, but you can continue with the video if you want.
Terrorizing people.
I'm curious what you think, Max.
Yeah, I would be shocked. First of all, because Hamas is mortally opposed to ISIS and Salafi elements. They've actually battled them in the streets in Rafah before. They consider them a threat to their stability, and Israeli intelligence actually has worked with Salafi elements in Gaza to destabilize Hamas, just as Israeli intelligence supported Hamas to destabilize the PLO when it controlled Gaza in the 1980s. So I would be shocked if they employed something like this. The only source so far on.
So I just want you guys to know, Max Blumenthal just dismantled this point immediately, just right there. But I'll let it continue.
This story is one Israeli soldier who's a very interesting character. We've traced his identity at the Gray Zone. And it comes through a state-sponsored Israeli media organization, as you pointed out, I-24, the reporter Nicole Sedek, who just went to Kfar Aza and said, I'm hearing that babies were beheaded.
Right.
Then the Israeli Foreign Ministry goes and blasts it out, 40 babies beheaded. Why? Because the U.S. bombed the crap out of ISIS in Raqqa. We destroyed half of the city of Raqqa, and that's what Israel wants us to do to Iran. They want us to see Hamas as ISIS and then to get involved in their regional conflicts. So they're pushing this story. The source is a Israeli soldier named Davidi Ben-Zion, who is a settler leader. He's from one of the fanatical wings of Israeli politics, and he, he's a reservist. He's serving in the military. But he got in trouble earlier this year because he called for an entire Palestinian village to be wiped off the map next to his illegal settlement in the West Bank. And he's the guy that she's interviewing as her credible witness. I don't trust it. And as you said, Israel has enough to go on right now to try to portray itself, even though it's the occupier and besieger of the Gaza Strip, according to international law, to portray itself as a victim. Why do they need to do this? It's because they're trying to draw the U.S. in.
I agree with that for sure. Because that's why everybody immediately brings up the New York testimony. What will shock Americans to the most extreme degree to justify U.S. involvement?
You should break that down, though. Like
the New York testimony.
Yeah,
I mean, I can break it down. We have the Wikipedia pulled up. False testimony given to the United States Congressional Human Rights Caucus, October 10th, 1990, by a 15-year-old girl who was publicly identified by the time by her first name, Nayira. The testimony was widely publicized and was cited numerous times by U.S. senators and George H.W. Bush in their rationale to support Kuwait in the Gulf War. In 1992, it was revealed Nayira's last name was al-Sabah, and that she was the daughter of Saud al-Sabah, the Kuwaiti ambassador to the U.S. Furthermore, it was revealed that her testimony was organized as part of the Citizens for a Free Kuwait public relations campaign, which was run by the American public relations firm Hill and Knowlton.
So this part, they actually do a good job explaining how the U.S. uses these psyops, which I was surprised to see Tim Pool cover this. So he actually covered this part. We did this breakdown before. So I'm gonna fast forward to this part here. Around 18 minutes. We're at 16 minutes now. Around 18 minutes get really good. So I want to make sure we get to that point. So I'll play from here.
Which is to deflect from the obviously true, real videos of babies being killed by Israeli airstrikes all across the Gaza Strip. When I was in Gaza in 2014, I went to Khan Yunis, which is in the southeast, had been completely destroyed at its eastern edge by the Israeli military. And the casualties were so intense that the hospital started filling up in Khan Yunis. And I went to a small hospital and talked to the head of the hospital, and he showed me photos. And these photos are on my Twitter page from the time, all real. He had to bring in from local shops ice cream coolers to store dead babies in because the mortuaries had run out of space.
What Max is doing right now, because Tim earlier was talking about how he's concerned about whether the beheaded babies are true or not. We know that Palestinians are targeting civilians. So what Max is accurately doing is explaining the Israeli crimes where they targeted civilians, which is what I said earlier. Israel set the terms of engagement. So you guys can't be surprised when any Palestinian.
And now we see Israel attacking the hospital in Beit Hanun in the north is completely out of commission. All of these hospitals are coming under attack. So babies are dying in the Gaza Strip. There's video right now. Jackson Hinkle just tweeted a video of a father carrying his baby out of the rubble. There's another video on Times of Gaza, a local publication, of a father putting his infant daughter to sleep for the last time. And they've completely erased these casualties. They've always been erased. And that's part of what fuels the violence and the ruthlessness that we see from these fighters, is that they want to avenge what they call their martyrs. And that fuels what is, referred to as the cycle of violence. That's the invisibilization of them.
So you think that some Hamas fighters, they target civilians because civilians in Gaza are targeted?
Well, first of all, let's point out.
I'm curious about this answer right here.
Yeah, this is where it gets good, because the counter-revolutionary is going to chime in and try and pretend he has the moral high ground over Max Blumenthal, even though he supports anti-communism, which killed millions and millions of people. So to keep that in mind.
And never showed this. Fox never showed this. They targeted military bases, primarily military bases like Nahal Oz, that are maintaining the siege of Gaza, and they overwhelmed those bases and humiliated the fourth most powerful military on the planet with a blue water navy with nuclear weapons. Some of these fighters were filmed entering the bases with no shoes on. They're using homemade weapons, AK-47s, paragliders, fishing boats to get in. This is not a powerful army, and they humiliated them and Israelis' vaunted intelligence services. So they don't want to talk about that. And yes, they went in. A lot of these kibbutzim are right next to the bases. I've been to them.
Yeah, but they did, this is a terrorist attack. They went to a music festival and started killing people. So I get what you're saying. Like, they are definitely the underdogs and stuff. But like, to classify it, try and point out that it's, or to make it, to legitimize it as an actual military operation, I think totally glosses over the fact that they attacked civilians intentionally. They did.
It was a military
operation. I'll let Max destroy him. Listen.
And Israel is now attacking civilians intentionally.
They're not targeting.
Israel has a doctrine of targeting civilians intentionally. It's called the Dahiyya doctrine. And
so you guys realize he destroyed this man in literally less than 15 seconds.
Because this is a person who believes I know the entire story based off the propaganda I've been told. Yes. And Max is a person I know the entire story because I've been there and I actually read shit. You get what I'm saying? It's a completely different sort of understanding of the topic that he's not going to be able to ever. That's why you say around a 50-minute mark. He kind of gives up. He's just I can't do this.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, and if you watch the whole thing, let me know. But I only made it about an hour mark. I know it's like 20, like in the last 20 minutes, from 40 minutes to an hour, the guy kind of gives up, going this hard at him. And then Tim Pool later said, like, man, we need to bring someone who's on the pro-Israeli side. At that point, they were so defeated. And I forgot to say in my preface, fam, I wish I could show you guys the live chat. If you watched it, because I saw the live chat up on my YouTube when I was watching it. Bro, the live chat was fucking seething because Max Blumenthal was destroying this motherfucker. And Tim Pool has a right-wing Zionist audience.
Yeah.
So bro, if you guys want entertainment, watch this and just scroll the live chat. There were so many people that was saying, Max is a terrorist, Hamas sympathizer, worst guest ever. Fuck this guy. This guy is evil. But meanwhile, Max Blumenthal destroying their show host with facts, and they was seething the way I never seen before. It's such a giant W for Max. But I'll play that part again because this guy.
I was just gonna say rewind in like 10 seconds or
and
so.
I can lay out.
I rewind in 10 seconds because I want you guys to see how fast Max Blumenthal destroys his point. This guy, his premise is that Israel is in the right because Palestinians are terrorists. Meanwhile, Israel don't purposely go after civilians. Watch how easily Max destroys this point here.
planet with a blue water navy with nuclear weapons. Some of these fighters were filmed entering the bases with no shoes on. They're using homemade weapons, AK-47s, paragliders, fishing boats to get in. This is not a powerful army, and they humiliated them and Israelis' vaunted intelligence services. So they don't want to talk about that. And yes, they went in. A lot of these kibbutzim are right next to the bases. I've been to them.
Yeah, but they did, like, I mean, this is a terrorist attack. They went to a music festival and started killing people. So I get what you're saying. Like, they are definitely the underdogs and stuff. But like, to classify it, try and point out that it's, or to make it, to legitimize it as an actual military operation, I think totally glosses over the fact that they attacked civilians intentionally. They did.
It was a military operation, and Israel is now attacking civilians intentionally.
They're not targeting.
Israel has a doctrine of targeting civilians intentionally. It's called the Dahiyya doctrine, and I can lay out what it is. But they believe that if they attack civilians and humiliate them, they will eventually rise up against their government. They tested it against Hezbollah.
Can you pause it? This is the same concept of sanctions. This is the same concept of sanctions is being delivered in a different way, but because it's a more direct sort of infliction of harm and death, whereas sanctions is a slow. So it's the same intent. Change your leadership, change your leadership, change your leadership. Change your regime. But go ahead with the video.
Yeah, there's we got maybe another 5-10 minutes on the segment. We got tons of stuff to cover. There's another crucial point we must hit. So I'm gonna let it play for a bit and now add my context. This is just brilliant slang by Max Blumenthal, calling out this counter-revolutionary on this lie, the lie that everyone is perpetuating in liberal media who's a Zionist, that Israel don't target civilians. That's why they had the moral high ground over Hamas, who does. That is a lie. Like I said, Zionism has no intellectual, moral, or legal argument. Let's continue.
It's being used against the civilians in the Gaza Strip. They want to lower their morale so much that they actually turn.
But you're still talking about a retaliation, right? Like, because like I said, again, this initially started, and granted, I don't know the details about where if they attacked the.
So you shouldn't be trying, man, because this is about to be embarrassing.
The military bases or whatever, and I'm not trying to push back on that, but the idea that this is just a military operation, they specifically went and started killing people at the festival. Like, I mean, it has all of it reminds me of the Bataclan in Paris. Like, it's a terror attack. The point is so maybe if you want to say that the Israelis are terrorists as well, fine. Like, I'm not here to defend Israel, but the idea that the initial attack was a military operation or exclusively military, they attacked people and they went after civilians and killed people at a show.
When Max started bringing this up, I mean, I'm not interjecting because I want to hear what you have to say about what were they targeting in terms of military targets. I don't think it makes sense for Hamas to come in and just literally only target a music festival. Obviously, I think it's reasonable that they targeted a wide breadth of things. But I do agree with Phil. I mean, the problem is one of the arguments we're hearing is that they're breaking out of an open air prison. Well, okay, absolutely. I mean, I know people who are the families of those in Palestine, those who have come from Gaza, and absolutely have heard these arguments. But to then see them going to a music festival and laughing about it, and grabbing people and throwing them on the ground. I suppose the argument is the videos are all fake or something, but there's videos of the guys walking up the cars and just shooting regular people, like just in their cars.
Think about the concept of what they're trying to get you to believe. Think about the concept. Like, let's go with it being true. These people, music festival, they target. So you're trying to say there's some sort of equivalent to a system that puts people in concentration camps. Yeah, that's okay. But then these militants, or whatever you want to call them, go and do something at a music festival. I'm just trying to understand the argument why you're trying so hard to push this. Like, what is the point that you're making here? Is what I'm saying.
That's a good. There's no point. Once again, Israel set the terms of engagement, so they are the one who set the terms that civilians are open targets. Now, once again, the Palestinian responses, all these motherfuckers are served in the IDF. There's no real civilian in a military police state, and anyone who occupies and benefits from the military police state is a fair target, especially when Israel does not negotiate unless there are hostages. Whether you guys will agree with that or not, that sentiment make you angry. You should be upset with the United States and Israel for setting the situation up where Gaza and Hamas had to retaliate the same way that Israel would. So I let Max take from here. There's just only a few more minutes I want to play, so we don't got that much longer.
I was gonna say, like, if you, we got to do the Lindsey story, but if you want to cut the LeBron story just to give this another 10 minutes, we could do that.
Yeah, we can do LeBron. We can always do LeBron on Saturday.
LeBron another day, or whatever. So we could do that.
Yeah. So there's I'll let Max take from here because there's a lot of cover here.
Who have no idea what's going on.
I'll give my thoughts after it's finished.
Israeli doctrine of targeting civilians called
Dahia doctrine, and they also, if you look up Israel and mowing the lawn,
I was going to say this earlier, but it was like it wasn't enough said. But that one line makes me want to say this now. These are three people who want to believe propaganda. Yeah, I'm starting from the point that I want to believe this. Now discredit me. He just gave you all types of factual evidence that you're pushing away, and now you want to research, you want to look it up so you can figure out the way to tear it down. When you don't have any idea of it, it's because you want to get to a point. You need to get to a point in the narrative. You see, this is from freaking nonsense. You're not looking up to learn. You're looking it up because you want to be able to attack it because you want to stay in the same position.
Yep, and that was the live chat, CJ. Everyone in the live chat fucking seething. For real, guys, if you want to have a laugh, look at the live stream tab to this. Actually, can I pull it up real quick? Let me see if I can pull it up, actually.
Pretty sure it's
I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it'll be funny to see. Actually, let's not read this. Max line about Israel here. Facts Phil. Max is a Palestinian supporter. He loves Allah. Max is not a credible source. And I'll just read a few, fam. It was literally the entire hour of them melting down at Max, fam. And what did he say that was inaccurate? I'm not going to read this whole chat there, but it's funny.
And I'm sure they're not combating factual evidence. They're just saying they're mad and he's this. Just labeling names, just vibes, Nick. Has nothing to do with evidence, has nothing to do with like, no, well, that treaty said this too. Is none of that is going to come up. But go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a few more minutes here. Let's continue.
Doctrine, and they also, if you look up Israel and mowing the lawn, that's a common term that the Israeli military uses.
That ain't just the Israeli military. Blood makes the grass grow, homie.
No, but I brought this up before when I think I brought this up when I was on PBD on Saturday when this all went down. Back when Protective Edge happened in 2014. I did not cover this stuff. Mine was civil unrest, not civil war, not war.
Yeah, I'm gonna fast forward here because I don't give a fuck. Let's just for a second time. Let's see. 27 minutes. So let's get 27 minutes. I see that in my notes. He may say something important here, but I don't really give a fuck. We got limited time. So I'm marked 27 minutes down as important. So let's play it and let's see.
So when rockets come flying from Gaza and start blowing up over Tel Aviv. I mean, this was huge, right? This was like 2014 when the rockets first started reaching Tel Aviv. Was that? Because I remember I had a friend in Tel Aviv.
I was there at that time, yeah.
Messaged me freaking out on Facebook that a rocket exploded over her house and this had never happened before and she doesn't know what to do. And I'm like, man, this is horror. It's horror. It's war. It's terrifying. How do we stop this? And so what ends up happening is every time I've engaged with it, again, not an expert on this stuff. I mean, I probably might know a little bit more than the average person, but it's like, I appreciate your perspective. I'm glad you're here to tell us about this stuff too, because I think only talking to people who are on the more pro-Israel side is going to leave us, blind to the arguments from the other side. Yeah. But I hear Israel, they're using hospitals and schools and civilian areas to launch rockets from, knowing that it will make it extremely difficult for Israel to stop the rocket fire into civilian areas. Then I hear the same thing. But a media tower was taken down. For what purpose? Why is Israel targeting this? And every time I hear this, my
media's communications.
I fall right back to, this is war. And in war, there's no rules. Rules are for, it's like this idea of war crimes I always find so silly. Like, obviously, we think some things are so egregious that even in war, they're a crime. But the people who win those wars don't care what you think because you're gone. And so when I look at what's going on in Israel and Palestine, I know that you've got two factions that are going to use whatever arguments, whatever psychological warfare, whatever physical warfare they can to try and win this. And I know that there probably is a right side and someone's telling the truth. And I know for a fact there's an objective truth and lies to what's going on. I don't know how to navigate that.
Well, just two.
Can you pause it right here? Go ahead.
There's a reason why I want to share that. So you guys see how Tim is conflicted on this issue. You guys see this is what happened when you have no what's the best term? You have no theory behind your politics. You have no guiding principle behind your politics. So the Israeli-Palestine issue is not confusing to me because it's an issue of settler colonialism. And he mentioned how who gets away with war crimes? War crimes, essentially whoever wins get away with it. You guys know the only reason why Israel get away with their war crimes is because they had the backing and the veto power of the United States. So you're supposed to start there. You also start with the point that Israel is inherently in the wrong because they're the one who are implementing colonial genocide. So the people who are engaging in self-defense, why will you lash out on them? Isn't the founding principle of the country give me liberty or give me death, fighting against tyranny? So why are you confused about what you're laying on this issue, Tim? He's like, man, war is complicated. I don't know where to land. It's easy. Who is the victim of colonialism? You notice how these white people, they don't start there? They don't start like, who's the victim of colonialism? They see the people fighting against colonialism, and they view them as just as guilty as the violent colonialist. It's unbelievable.
What I also find,
go ahead, CJ.
What I also find funny here is that this is people who are on a side. They don't let evidence guide their side. They just on the side, and they're going to stay on the side regardless of evidence, because clearly what the stuff that Max said could have convinced them completely. Oh, I'm now pro-Palestinian. But you see how it took propaganda, lies to get you on the side of Israel. But facts only move you to the middle. So now you're just saying, well, this is a war, this is a conflict. You're never willing, and I find this with white people who are giving analysis, they're never willing to go sort of beyond, okay, yes, this is a colonial settler project. It's never going back to the genesis. It's always, it always fails to get to that point.
Yeah,
is my point. But go ahead.
So I'm gonna play Max's response to what just Tim said, and then we can wrap the segment. I will highly suggest. I know Tim Pool may be hard to watch because there's a reason why I pick parts here. Because a lot of it like waste of time, like watching the show. This is the most I ever watched Tim Pool combined. I highly recommend watching this so you guys can learn how to dismantle Zionist talking points. Because Max responded in the perfect way, in my point of view. I don't know how I would handle this debate. My ego wanted to tell me I would have did well, right? But you never know. You never really know when you're debating Zionists and people that say ridiculous stuff like the counter-revolutionary. So Max is the perfect person to learn how to do this from. So even though I'm going to play just a little bit more, I do highly recommend watching this in your spare time because for the hour I've seen, Max did a good job. And you see that even Tim Pool actually be like, man, I need to have Israeli side to explain this shit. And so y'all need to explain. I want to follow your direction, but whew, that's a lot to take in. And then the counter-revolutionary gives up. Go ahead.
And watch when he does have that person, how easily it doesn't take them to be on the side. They're going to say a couple of words. Oh, well, I'm on that side now. You see how, you get what I'm saying? Like it takes a mountain of evidence just to move you to the center. But it takes you almost no evidence and a lot of propaganda to move you to the right or to the Israeli side. That's a tell to me.
Yeah. So I'll play Max's response so you guys can hear, and then we can wrap.
Points on that. I mean, there's this issue of human shields. Like Biden said, Palestinians are human shields. That's a way of basically saying there are no civilians there at all. And the Gaza Strip is one of the most densely populated places
like
on
2
Earth.
million people.
There's it's 2 million people jammed. Why are they there? By the way, that most of them are refugees and they have to be there because they're not Jewish. They can't go back to the land of their families pre-1948.
So how is that? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but how is Palestinians using human shields with that fact? Sean Hannity, Zionist. When you reconcile that fact that they can't leave, how can you say that Palestinians are using human shields? In fact, that is quite disgusting. But anyway, let me continue because Max is on fire.
Kids, they're being warehoused there. There's surplus humanity. So it's like the logic of a prison. And so everybody there is a human shield. But there was a place I like to eat because it's real cheap in Tel Aviv that was right next to.
I'm gonna say this because his comment is up. There's another point in this debate I was playing because we don't have time to watch it, where the counter-revolutionary anti-communist guy tried to explain like, well, I understand you're making a great point, Matt, but another we can really do because it's like a religious issue. He pushes the whole religious issue thing. You know what I mean? How these Palestinians would never coexist with Jews. Max is Jewish, and he went to Gaza multiple times. Remember what I said earlier this week, CJ? these people keep framing Palestinians as people who just want to kill Jews. That is disgusting, anti-Semitic Zionist talking points. Because Jewish people like Max Blumenthal, Katie Halper, and many people who support the Free Palestine movement, they are not threatened by Palestinians. It's if you support the Zionist project or not. But anyway, so let me continue. I just had to add that point because I won't have time to show you that guy trying to make this about religion. So last part, and I'll wrap it up.
The defense ministry called Hakiria, and all the generals would be in there, the intelligence chiefs, good Mediterranean food. Are they human shields? Is building this giant tower in the middle of a residential area in Tel Aviv? Are they making those people human shields? If that gets hit by Hezbollah and people die nearby, were they being used by Israel as human shields? No one will say that because the logic is so discriminatory towards Palestinians. No one will consider their position. And then the other point I wanted to make is just about the use of violence in this conflict by Palestinians who have tried everything. I mean, I don't know if you know about what the Great March of Return was. It was sanctioned by Hamas, but it was a grassroots initiative in Gaza to just march without weapons like guns to the wall that surrounds them. And they were shot one by one in the legs. Many of them were killed. Journalists were killed covering it. It was a complete bloodbath. And that's when the society said, you know what, we can't win with this tactic of, walking to the fence and just asking them to let us in. They don't want us. That's
now I'm gonna end on that point, but you guys see, that's why I reject the PMC left who weaponizing their pacifism against the Palestinians, because the Palestinians had tried. So if I ever talk to Dr. Cornel West again, my question to him will be, what do you suggest the Palestinians do? And I promise you guys, the answer from any, not just Dr. West, but any PMC left, essentially will be, they will say the nice version of this, they'll die politely. They're going to say a nice version of that. Because they tried peaceful movements, they tried BDS, which was supported by every single Palestinian organization that was shut down illegally by Western governments. They tried the Great March of Return and many other peaceful actions, and they died because of it. So my answer to people like Dr. Cornel West, who I agree largely with this issue, who I'm glad is saying good things about the Palestinians, what do you suggest they do? What do you suggest they do? And as someone who pay taxes that fund the apartheid genocide of the Palestinian people, I am not going to condemn them for engaging in the same terms of engagement that the Israelis do, but on a way smaller scale. So that were my thoughts on this, CJ. I know we got a lot of cover. So your last thoughts on this, and then we can move on to
what I'm happy is that when people who advocate for positions that we are staunchly for, when they go in these spaces, it's very important that they go in these spaces for what we want to do, Nick. And what is it we want to do? We believe all workers across political sort of ideological beliefs, need to come together. So when he goes in these spaces and talks to those people, you see how it's more than economics. Because what do we always say? You on the stuff you agree with, you team up with them and you fight as hard as you can to convince them for some of the other things you want to convince them of. And I think when you're in those spaces with those people, so just imagine we're in these economic spaces, and now they've said, oh, now when we start talking about Palestine, Nick, they go, you know what? I was watching Tim Pool and I saw Max Blumenthal. He did mention how they target civilians. I didn't know that, so I looked up that thing he said. And I never knew that. You see how now these conversations gives us openings, and we take any opening, just like a running back, which I was in high school, a running back, and you take that hole and you go. Whatever opens up for you. The design is the 3-hole, but if the 3-hole don't open up, if 5 and 7 open up, you take whatever opens up. And that's what I think. Like, this is an opening. If at a time somebody who watched this podcast said, hey, I saw that, that's the good part. So I say kudos to Max Blumenthal. Final word.
Yeah, so CJ, I'll pass to you. I know you got a few things you want to cover as well. I'll read
a
few super chats in between.
I can read super chats and I'll get ready.
Yeah, I'll let you give you time to prepare your next segment. I'll read a few super chats. Thank you for the $10, Auntie Ann. A journalist in Gaza reported that IDF is bombing people fleeing Gaza City on the road to the south. I'll put the link in the chat if it's allowed. Gaza will have no internet starting tomorrow. And you guys know I love receipts, and I'll show you guys receipts because I don't expect you guys to believe me. But when it comes to this issue, you guys got to take my word for it because JB got demonetized. They were banning people on YouTube, demonetizing YouTubers for showing the receipts of Israeli war crimes. I think they're using like the justification of showing graphic images. But it's funny how like the Zionist accounts don't get banned for that, right? Isn't that interesting? Even though that's the use they use. So you guys know I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So there's massive atrocity. I'm not gonna show you guys on this YouTube channel because I'm already terrified. I'm gonna get banned on X and YouTube any moment now for simply quoting legal law, the law that the West loves so much, that Palestinians had the right to defend themselves. The fact that Israel is the side that is out of compliance. You can be disgusted with Palestinian tactics all you want, just know Israelis engaged in that first. And they've been condemned by the UN countless times, by the international community countless times. But then they had the United States and the UK right fucking there, CJ, to veto the resolution that is supposed to hold them accountable every single time. So I won't yield to them. I really just hope this don't get me in trouble. Thank for $5, Ronald Shaw. Free speech ends where the desire of the ruling class begins. Thank you, Ronald. Can you guys imagine if I had a manager? Like, bro, these Zionists would get us fired in a second, bro. Like, and I will tell you guys this, because this is what I did for a very long time as I was working on the job while doing this. Don't share your personal information. You guys see Zoya always have her camera off. She don't post a picture because she's an activist who's been targeted before. The Zionists and AIPAC lobby will ruin us for speaking out on this issue. Thankfully, I have no manager involved for them to cry to, because trust me, they would. Like, they're going to find other ways. If I continue, with RBN continue to grow, they're going to go after all of us, CJ. They went after JB Channel.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have no idea how dirty AIPAC fight. So thank God they have no way to get me fired. Already seen people, Zionists reaching out to people on social media who's speaking out for free Palestine, like, oh, do you support this? But this person spreading anti-Semitism at your job. Like, this is what they do. They attack your finances. Anyway, I'll spare you guys. I'll read 2 more super chats. Actually, 3 more. And then I'll pass to you, CJ. Oh, this is gonna be a good segment. Excuse me. Thank you for $10, Luca. Yeah, I gotta watch this. You must watch George Calloway's 30-minute interview with Scott Ritter. He boldly asserts that only the complete defeat of Israel by an alliance of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Syria and Iran can bring peace. And I've seen a lot of people float this idea, which I don't necessarily agree with. I got to research more into this, that Israel really fucked up. Like, Palestinians going to pay, no doubt. There's going to be a genocide. But their rank violent actions here is going to mobilize the pro-Palestinian forces in a way that we've never seen before. Like, with the West being unhinged with Ukraine, with China provoking war with Iran, they just see, the Biden administration just sees another $6 billion from Iran. You know what I mean? So now they're like, this is go time, fam. Like, it's like the Palestinians realize it's go time. Mm-hmm. China is go time. Russia,
Saudi Arabia came out and said something about it too. Saudi Arabia said something to the effect of, the only solution to this is for an actual Palestinian state to start now, not in the future. Yeah. Now is the time.
Yep. So. Xi Jinping said the same thing as well. So, man, so I've seen that analysis, and it's something that I'm definitely going to explore, that Israel made a giant mistake here. I've seen it, and it's very credible. I would love to see what Scott Ritter says on this. It's just sad, man, because I don't like the loss of human life, but this is going to, Israel's action is going to lead to a massive loss of human life. And this is what we've been warning people about regarding the apartheid state of Israel. We've been warning people that this is a ticking time bomb. And now that shit is about to go off, CJ. We are living in crazy fucking times, fam. Yeah, I have no idea. I'll just read one more actual super chat. Big shout out to Black and Empire, our good friend. I appreciate you leaving the super sticker here. Big shout out to Juliet, the new member. And this is the last one for Nima. Thank you for the $2. What are your thoughts on Ben Norton? Laugh out loud.
Ben Norton, what?
Very disappointing, because I don't know if you guys remember, we had Jackson Hinkle was on our show before, and he mentioned the Ben Norton stealing for the Grayzo story on our channel. But I didn't. But that was way before this shit. I don't know if you. I know CJ don't usually follow this kind of drama, so if you don't know,
I don't follow it.
Yeah, Max exposed Ben Norton as a thief who exploited Max's in the gray zone labor value. So even though I love Ben Norton's work, it's disgusting as a socialist to see someone exploit the labor value of others. He stole their money. He continued to profit from them while they was working as they were going through legal disputes. It's a piece of work. I didn't cover it. I think Due Dissidents did cover it over it. There's too much stuff to cover. I didn't have time to cover that drama. But I think it was a very thorough thread by Max. And I had to stand with Max. I don't like to pick sides, but you have to because Ben Norton stole from them. Like, that's something that we have to stand up against. Like, you can't be taking advantage of people's labor value. So he does good work. It's disappointing that all the allegations against him seem to be true. And the funny thing is, Jackson Hinkle said that on the show. I don't know if you remember this, but he mentioned like Ben Norton's a thief that stole from the gray zone. That's the first time I heard that. I'm like, whoa. I don't know if Jackson just made that up, but that's a bombshell. I don't know. I gotta look into that. It turned out that was true, but Max didn't want drama or whatever. So Max was like, man, he posted it because he was given no choice. He tried to resolve it behind the scene for a very long time. And Ben Norton, being the scumbag that he is, gave him no choice but to air this out. But anyway, I don't want to take too much time on it. I have been covering it. I've been seeing people like, are you guys going to cover that? I didn't have time. So that's my take. That's my coverage of the issue. So
yeah, I don't have an opinion. I stay out of this stuff unless it was like his reporting is suspect. This is a personal matter that doesn't involve me at all. This is a personal matter. Now, my analysis can be that, this is not good as a socialist, as he claimed to be a socialist, but it's still, this is to me a personal matter that I'm not.
Yeah, no, I didn't have time to cover.
Yeah, I don't care about.
I'll comment ask on it, but go ahead, CJ.
But sure. Yeah, like we did. So, all right, let's go through this. We got 10 minutes roughly. Kind of got a hard out in 10 minutes. So this is not a long story at all. I think we might actually, Nick, be done before that. But let me play about 2 minutes of this clip, and then we'll comment. And then I got a couple of other receipts just showing.
Yeah, let you take over.
Graham is unhinged. And let me preface it this way: this is just one of the many videos or interviews, I should say, where he goes on cable news and is completely unhinged about China in particular, and now about Iran, I should say, and Mexico too, has been unhinged. I think those are the three that I've covered. But let's listen when he goes on CNN. Try to play at least 2 minutes of it before we comment.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, shoot. Let me go to my other receipt first, and I'll come back to that. Now, this is the headline that caught my eye. Let me scroll all the way down here. Now, this is not a video. This is just the headline. He was on CNN. Now, it says, Graham, this is a quote, "We must bomb the entire world." And this is actually more telling than maybe the caption is. This is the sort of the foreign policy belief of the United States. Now, let me get in. Now the video's working. Now let me get to the video right here. This is Abby Martin on CNN.
That would bomb
Lindsey
Iran's oil infrastructure. The money financing terrorism.
All right. He goes right into saying who he bombed. So I talked over it. Let me rewind it. Listen to this. Not again.
Yeah, just refresh it real quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does that when you go back sometimes. But the funny thing is, I'm going to show you guys my only receipt on the story is going to be the Babylon Bee roasting him. Like, Lindsey Graham is so unhinged, he lost to Republicans. Do you guys know how hard it is to do on this issue? Do you know how crazy you have to be to lose Republicans on the issue of Israel offensives? You guys see the Blaze, a right-wing network, is calling out Graham for this. So he's so extreme, he's losing people on the right who's not like fucking fairies themselves, right? But anyway, that was me filling in for time.
Oil infrastructure. The money financing terrorism comes from Iran. It's time for this terrorist state to pay a price for financing and supporting all this chaos. Yes, if you're the Iranians, if it were up to me, this war escalates, I'm coming after you.
I think this is what I'm trying to clarify here, because I'm wondering if
us in Israel,
the United States and
Israel.
Israel.
I want to be crystal clear.
The United. Let me just understand you. Just to be clear, you're saying that you would want the United States and Israel to bomb Iran, even in the absence of direct evidence of their involvement in this attack.
Yeah. So if there's an escalation, Abby, if there's people.
He said, yeah. Dude, fam, remember the concept I told you guys on the show all the time, how the corporate media is actually more pro-war than politicians? Where they will grill Biden on sending more aid to Ukraine. Even people who support the policy, why aren't you sending more women to Taiwan? Do you guys understand how absolutely batshit crazy you have to be to have the Raytheon sponsored CNN to be like, hey, sir, what you are saying is crazy. You guys know how ridiculous that is? That CNN is saying this? Anyway, I'll let it play.
Wait a minute. Because you're saying all this stuff, sir. I haven't even introduced you, sir. And you're already saying I want to bomb the oil. Like, sir, hold on. Hold on here. Hold on, Lindsey. So you're saying with no evidence, you said, yes. Like, he couldn't even get the question out. But let's continue.
People's throats being cut on television as Israel goes into Gaza, and they're threatening to kill the hostages. If Hezbollah is unleashed on Israel in the north, it will be because Iran is supporting that. If you don't get the connection between Iran and this terrorist activity by Hamas and Hezbollah, you're missing a lot. This is a terrorist state that has American blood on its hands. It is now time to dismantle the financing system of terrorism if this war escalates. Yes, I would do a joint military operation. I tell the Iranians today, if the war escalates, you will pay a price. You will be out of the oil business. I want to be crystal clear on that. And if we don't do that, what do you expect to happen in the future?
You're going to be out of the oil business. He's already tipping off what this is really about. You're going to be out of the oil business. Really, Lindsey? And who's going to be taking over that oil business that they're out of, Nick? Who's going to be taking over this natural resources that they have plenty of? I mean, he's tipping off what the United States is really after in Iran. And let's finish out what he says here.
Do you expect Israel to forgive and forget? Biden didn't mention one word about Iran today, and I want to support the president. I'm supporting the Saudi-Israel peace deal. Israel made peace with several Arab countries through the Abraham Accords. I want to help the Palestinians we can do business with as part of a Saudi-Israel peace deal. But I'm tired of letting Iran, I think they did this to stop the Saudi-Arab peace negotiations, the Iranians. I don't want to reward them. I want to punish them.
So, Senator, can I ask you now about what's happening here in the United States? Republicans on Capitol Hill, your colleagues, especially in the House, are debating whether or not to fund Israel and Ukraine. Some of them don't want to fund Ukraine at all and only want to fund Israel. But my question to you is, do you think the U.S. risks being stretched too thin with these two incredibly significant conflicts happening at the same time, requiring quite a lot of American resources?
Yeah, no, not really. My dad fought in Japan and I had an uncle fought in Germany. America fought the Germans and the Japanese at the same time. Not one American has died in Ukraine. To my Republican colleagues who believe that we should pull the plug on supporting Ukraine, if you think Putin's going to stop at the Ukraine, you're not paying any attention. China's watching everything we do. So I think it would be really ill-conceived to not support Ukraine. They've destroyed half the Russian military. We've spent less than 5% of our defense budget, and not one American has died. This has been a good investment. Putin will keep going if we don't stop him in Ukraine. As to Iran, if there's an escalation of this war against Israel, I'm blaming Iran. And it's now time to put them on notice. They will pay a heavy price. I think we can do all those things. I think if there was a war with Iran, we would win.
Nick, the sign of a failing empire is going to war. Like the frequency of you engaging in a conflict is escalated. What is he talking about, Nick? Nick, who did he name? He named Iran. He named Palestine, or is he's talking about Palestine? But he said Israel, and he named a couple of other countries, China and Russia. Like, we're supposed to go to war with all these people, and he said, "No, not really. We're not stretched thin." Really, Lindsey? Amazing. But that's my final word before I go. Let's see your comments, and then I'm gonna get out of here.
I can read super chats and take over for you. Yeah, I want to get your reaction to this before you leave, though.
Yeah,
because the right wing and even Babylon B. And Babylon B is like the right wing onion. They dabble in mostly culture war shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when the Babylon fucking B is roasting your ass because they mostly go after Democrats and they focus on the culture war shit, when they go after you, that's how you know it's bad. So Babylon B said in a parody way, Lindsey Graham calls on the United States to bomb every country in the world. So right-wing parody sites are attacking him for being an extreme psychopath. But a point I must make to round this segment up is I realize I want you guys, and I really need to understand this guy's a moderate in Washington. He's the only guy that is crazy enough to go on TV and tell the truth about the empire. Fam, the position he stated is the position of the Biden administration. They just seized $6 billion from Iran. They're ready to escalate war with China. They're waging war with Russia. Every single Republican, you know, the Republicans that hated Matt Gaetz for challenging the Ukraine war funding, most of them support this neocon agenda. So at the Babylon B and the right is attacking Lindsey Graham, what Graham is advocating for is the moderate position in the Republican Party. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene, the anti-war wing of the Republican Party that's calling for the invasion of Mexico. They all calling for a war with Venezuela. They want to go with war with Cuba. They want to go with war with Iran. They want to starve and destroy the North Koreans. They want to go with war with China. They want to finish the Russians. You guys see what the fuck is going on in our society? Both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are supporting genocide. It's just Lindsey Graham is the only stupid motherfucker who, I guess he knows he's safe in his seat, to just come out and say their stated positions. Do you guys think that Lindsey Graham is a pariah in the Senate? That he like, you think people in the Senate like, man, this nigga Lindsey Graham is crazy, man. We gotta make sure we vote against his wars. No, they all in lockstep with this guy. He's just the guy going on corporate media. So I want you guys to remember that I'm aiming this at the right. So as you guys are laughing at this guy, as the Babylon B is quoting these articles, just know when you vote for Republican in 2024, you're literally advancing this agenda. They're just smart enough, the Josh Hawleys of the world, all these Republican senators, they're smart enough to not go on a PR tour and make an ass of themselves like this, right? So
Yeah,
CJ,
I'm gonna get out of here. I'm like, I don't know if you, I still got a bunch of stories, so I'm likely to go live tomorrow. If you decide to go live, Nick, then we'll communicate and see. Maybe it'll be a handoff show, or maybe it will come together. We'll see how it works out. We'll talk online. So I'll see everybody tomorrow, most likely, unless something big happens. I'll most likely see you tomorrow because there's just so many stories we still didn't get to. But all right, Nick, I'm out.
All right, see you guys. I want to get to some super chats. I'm glad we covered some before. I appreciate the $10. Gotta join Black in the Empire in support of RBN. Black in the Empire is the homie. He spit straight fire on Twitter, if you guys don't know. All this excellence is keeping us properly informed and educated. That's why I decided to be a citizen journalist. Like, I never listened to the people who will mock this. You know what I mean? There are people that wanted to put me down on the road to get where we at right now. When people are like, you're just a YouTuber. Oh, you're a YouTuber. You understand? No, nigga, we are engaging in citizen journalism using the technology available to us to radicalize as many people as possible to engage in mutual aid and activism, which I think we have done. So I take absolute pride in what we are doing. I appreciate the support. Thank you for the $2 Nima. Let's not forget Abby Martin. Oh, did she? No way, bro. No way. That's a heartbreaker. I didn't know that. Come on, man. Cause you know, Abby. That's actually a heartbreaker. That's a real heartbreaker. Thank you for $5. Man, that Trump random syndrome must have got her real bad. I did not know that. That's surprising. Thank you for $5. Tina, is anyone else getting free Israel ads? I was so upset I put on an ad blocker. In fact, there was this ad. Let's see if I can pull this real quick. Because low-key called this out. Let's see if I can find this out. I'll find this real quick. I'm in between so much shit today. But low-key pointing out how YouTube was running these insane ads, talking about how Palestinians are killing our babies, beheading our babies. And they put it on kid YouTube. And the whole message was, oh, your kid can't read this, but I know you can. They're killing our babies. Here it is. Thank God I found it. Because I must share this with you guys since this is up here. This is the insane propaganda come from Israel right now. Look, Israel. I'm gonna put the super chat down just for 1 second. Look at this. This from Loki. He said Israel is paying YouTube to place adverts like this before videos aimed at children. Listen to what they're saying. Know that your child cannot read this. We have an important message to tell you as parents. 40 infants were murdered in Israel by a mosque.
What the fuck?
Just as you would do everything for your child, you would do everything to protect ours. Now hug your baby and stand with us. So this is Israel putting pro-genocide content out on kid YouTube. Insanity. Let's move on. Got Tina with a follow-up to this one. I wish I screenshotted it. There are a ton of people that have. So don't feel bad. Loki and a few other people are covering this. So I'm glad I got a chance to show you guys that receipt. We had too much stuff to cover today. Thank you for $2. Thank you for keeping at it. Your passion and conviction. Absolutely. Thank you for the $2. Do all things with love. That's why I see when channels like Vanguard, Cow and Crystal sell out. I don't understand it. Why even do this? Like, if you're selling out for the money, man, I would be selling cars. I would make more money selling cars than doing this. So if I was in it for just the money, I'd be selling cars. There's no other reason to do this unless you're speaking truth to power. I legitimately don't understand these sellout people. I don't get it. Thank you for the $4.99, Ali Diaz. This is why RFK Jr. will not debate Max. Absolutely. This is why RFK Jr. should never be taken seriously again, because RFK Jr. was in front of 15,000 people, promised to debate Max Blumenthal on his unhinged Israeli logics, and he did the same thing that Peter Hotez did to him. How did that not end RFK's career immediately when he pulled the Peter Hotez on Max Blumenthal? I will never understand that. Thank you for the $9.99 Old Crow Targeter. They are killing me, calling them civilians. If you serve in the IDF or work with the IDF or work for their intelligence agencies, you're not a civilian. Also, dual citizens who are over serving the IDF. Now, I sent out a tweet that had like 3,000 plus likes on it where I called this out, and no one can answer that question. I gotta be careful because YouTube is censoring people, but I really want people to answer me that question. Israel is a militarized police state where there's mandatory military service. If you don't engage in genocide and apartheid, they will lock you in a cage. Now, I would criticize Palestinians who go after Israelis who take prison time and protest against mandatory military service. That's obviously a misstep and a crime against humanity. But if you enrolled in the IDF, if you're a settler, you're not a civilian in my eyes. And you can cry all you want at this opinion, but facts over your feelings, bro. Facts over your feelings, everyone on the right. Everyone who's forced to join the military in a military police state, you're not a civilian. In fact, you're disgusting because you're putting children at risk by putting them in a military settler colonial society when they cannot consent to do so. These are the people that are victims, the Israelis and Palestinian children. So I gotta be very careful with that talking point because I am right on that, but I think I could get in trouble with saying that, to be honest. Thank you for the $2. KDG, I mean Tim Pool. Absolutely. That's the last super chat for today. I appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure you follow us on Substack because we send you notifications on whether we go live or not, because we're still deciding whether we're going doing Friday or Saturday or not. Still a lot to cover. I appreciate you guys from sticking in there with us. Make sure you guys support our Patreon and share our stream. Have a good one, y'all.